morning, everybody. Uh, This is a regular meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. It's a regular session. We're also sitting as all special taxing districts. This is the meeting of January 22nd, 2020. We are starting a little late, but for a very special reason, and we'll get to it when we get to the call to the public. Will everybody please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor McLeod, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And our next item is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Um, we have presentations, proclamations, and appointments right after this. So I'm going to wait until then to introduce our special guests this morning. The first item in the agenda is call to the public. So I do have a card here for a speaker. His name is Will Katz. I'm not gonna read his address or his phone number, but would you please step up to the podium?
Hello, good morning. My name is William Katz, 340 West 32nd Street, P.O. Box 643. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. I don't know if it's too late to say Happy New Year, if the statute of limitations has expired on that. I just wanted to let the Board of Supervisors know, and also Yuma County, my gratitude for another great year of your service and work for our community. Also, I mean, to be candid with you all, it's been an amazing decade. You guys have been knocking it out of the park, and it's something that we should all respect and honor, so thank you. I'm here today to ask for your assistance and help. You know, I read the newspaper, and I'm on Facebook every now and then. And it seems to me that I learned that the Somerton High School funding was denied by the Arizona State Facilities Board. And I think that's wrong. And I think that that's objectionable. And to me, as a member of the community and as a member of the county, I know that we have a intergovernmental affairs coordinator, Mr. Melcher. I know that we have various coalitions and boards that the supervisors sit on. I would ask that we do everything that we can as the community of Yuma and the county of Yuma to stand with Somerton, make the funding happen and make it a reality for Somerton High School and keep it on track. When I hear that there's $1 billion carry forward at the state level of a rainy day fund with our tax dollars, and then late in December, I hear that we can't fund Somerton High School, which as I understand it, is the largest city in Yuma not to have their own high school, that's a travesty. And we can do better, and we should all stand as residents of this community united and ask for that funding and ask for it to happen now to keep it on track. Additionally, on a separate matter, I don't get to come before the board and be here often, but I'd like to talk about a separate topic that's important to me. I'd ask for your assistance in respecting Second Amendment rights. Just last night, Bullhead City declared Bullhead City a Second Amendment sanctuary city, as well as Mojave County earlier in late 2019. There are over 400 municipalities and counties across our great nation that respect Second Amendment rights and have declared their communities Second Amendment sanctuary cities. I would request that this board schedule a vote and declare Yuma County a Second Amendment sanctuary city where Second Amendment rights are protected and respected. I appreciate your time, and I know that this board does respect the Constitution. I know that this board has a long history of respecting the Constitution, but sometimes in the future with folks who may be elected in the future, things change. And that's why I'm asking for your assistance now in proclaiming what we hold to be true in here in Yuma County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katz. And as I've made it clear, we can't really get into a discussion more. We can comment about some of the items that you brought forward, but thank you for your presentation and looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you, everyone.
Did you want to say anything about the high school?
Can't.
No, he can't.
He can't.
Well, no, saying something doesn't mean getting into a discussion. But anyway, let's drop it for the kids' sake. We won't have an argument about what represents, a discussion versus just a statement.
You might explain for them.
Well, what happens here is that when somebody brings out an item and presents it to the board, we really don't have many options. If it's not in the agenda and posted 24 hours before, we can't really get into a discussion about it. We can make comments, we can respond to criticism, or we can respond to, which is not very often, somebody coming in and saying, what a great job you're doing. So, this is one of those situations where, we can have not a discussion where we can answer some questions, but we decided that this time we're just gonna, go on with the agenda. And what I'm gonna do now is on the presentation, proclamation, appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. Also, there will be no legal action, but as I always do, I'll leave call to the public open throughout the meeting so that if there's an issue that somebody wants to bring forth that isn't in the agenda, they have an opportunity to bring it out. And I'm going to take the opportunity to have Lynn Pancrasy, who has got a long history in the educational sector of Yuma County, to do a special presentation of our honored guest this morning. Lynn, would you please?
Well, first of all, the group that's with us today is from Gila Vista Junior High School. They are the AVID group. And with them are Frank Nunez, and then I don't know who it's not Doug Norton, I can tell you that.
Christina Anderson.
Christina Anderson, nice to see you, Christina, is their advisor. And it is a class. Which one of you guys would like to get up and explain what your class does?
Ooh.
Come on, girls.
There's a
One
low
of you
blow
girls
right
get
there.
up there. Come on. Get up and talk. Tell us what your class is. Thank you. Now, when you get up here, you have to say what's your name. So tell us your name and where you're from, which is Gila Vista Junior High. Go ahead.
My name's Itziana Husky, and I'm from the Gila Vista Junior High 8th grade AVID class. So our counselor just prepares us to technically do what we're going to do in college. So learn study skills, note-taking skills, and just communicating with people more. So I think it's helpful.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
I do too. I think it's a great class. So tell me some of the things what are you going to do when you go to college? Where are you going to college and what are you going to be?
I'm still deciding.
Okay.
I'm still thinking.
It's only 8th grade.
Oh no, you have to start thinking about that now. Oh yeah. You
Don't get nervous. Thousands of people watching you on TV right
I
now.
know.
Don't worry about that.
Keep
And
going.
on Facebook
Maybe.
and on Twitter.
Go ahead.
Maybe like in the medical field.
Okay.
Sounds interesting. Maybe sports.
Good.
I'm thinking of going to U of A.
Okay. Well, thank you. The fact that you're making some plans for your future is what AVID is all about. It's all about having young people think about what they want for their future and to kind of prepare for that. Am I correct? So I love this program. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did good.
And all of her
You
classmates
did
are going, thank
wonderful.
goodness we didn't sit in that seat.
I know.
Now we're taking someone from the right side.
Yeah.
If
Go
I might-
ahead, Frank. Frank,
If I
go
might
ahead.
address the board,
Mr.
thank you so
Nunez.
much. Itziana, you did great.
Yes,
Okay.
she did. She
She
did wonderful.
she has a dream, and she kind of shared with that a little bit yesterday. She wants to qualify for the Olympic team in the 200 freestyle.
Woo! Good for you.
Needs to shave some seconds off of her time, but she's working on. But that's kind of when you think about it, you set a target and you got to work towards it. Itziana's a student that's an exemplar of our AVID cohort here that has made college a target. And so when you make college a target, then you got to recognize that you better challenge yourself with the toughest coursework that you can access in the school that you're currently in. So when you access tougher coursework, then you need that support of, well, how do we study? How do we take notes? How do we listen in as the teacher is trying to give us a new concept? So success is a plan. It's not just something that happens overnight. She has a plan of going to the U of A, possibly medicine is one of those aspects. She also has a plan to qualify for the Olympic team, and working towards both those goals, you need the proper guidance and technique when you swim, right?
Yeah.
Technique's important. Technique's important in the classroom as well, whether it's a high school classroom or a college classroom, which is the next evolution for these students.
I love this program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
So-
you all for coming down here and learning about your county government. I hope some of you in the future will be sitting right here where we are now, and sitting right over there where we have the director, who is our current director of the health department. Can you raise and
Yeah,
she
yeah.
is. Yes, and she's our
And don't-
acting county administrator. And then you have Desiree Doughton, who is the assistant. And then you have Ed Fahey, who is the attorney for the county. And did you know that the county will, if you get your degree in law and you come to work for the county, they will pay back your loans that you've gotten in college as you work for the county in the area of law. So that's something you might want to think about. So anyway,
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I could
No,
go on
thank you
and
very
on.
much.
The teacher in me just
Yeah,
pops
you can
right
now,
out.
and you can keep your hair. If you come, you're actually sitting here. You don't have to be like bald or anything or ugly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point out.
Oh, he's so
Well, I'm glad
bad.
you're directly to his left.
No, really, thank you very much for coming, and we're gonna continue with the process because it is a pretty,
Trying to dodge him.
pretty strict process. We do have an agenda. I forgot to mention, we do have an agenda. We have an agenda in our computers, and it's posted at least 24 hours before the meeting, and anyone can just, go into the website and actually see what's in the agenda. And the items we will discuss will be separated in different sections. Some of them require a public hearing, which means that people can actually participate. In other items are just sort of administrative. We have different sections of the agenda. Hope we can get through some of them before you have to. I think your schedule will be somewhere else at 9. No, wait a minute, at 10. So we're gonna try to move as many of the items as we can, possibly can, okay? So thank you very much for being here, and hopefully this will be an interesting morning.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one more comment?
Sure you can.
Thank you.
So-
I
As
wanna
if I,
let
if
all
I,
these-
as if I
Start
could
the
say
timer.
no, right?
Okay, start the timer. It's well known and well documented that only 13% of the jobs in this country are for persons who have a high school diploma. So the rest of the jobs in this country are going to be for those folks who have post-high school certifications or a college degree. So all of you need to be thinking about post-high school certifications and a college degree right now, because your plans for the future will depend on you making those, getting your ideas and your future set in your head. So, okay, just that comment.
All right.
Okay, I'm done.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to go back to presentations, proclamations, and appointments. And the first item in this section of the agenda is presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel. I know, Paul, I know that you have to leave early, so I'll get you as soon as we get through this.
Volunteers join forces to clean up our desert landscape. We'll tell you about a housing rehabilitation program that helps alleviate health and safety issues for qualified homeowners. And as election season nears, our county recorder has some warnings to citizens about third-party mailers. These stories and more, this is your County Line. If you've lived in Yuma County for any amount of time, you know that desert dumping is a real problem. Recently, the Yuma County Public Works Department joined forces with others to help clean up. Volunteers met at 40th Street and Avenue 10E to rid the desert landscape of desert dumping going on in the area.
As you can see, there's been a lot of dumping out here, and we're trying to clean the desert up and make things look better.
Thanks to help from Home Depot, Empire Equipment, State Trust Lands, and others, construction trash, plastic bottles, appliances, food wrappers, tires, and so much more was carried away. Yuma County can assist with other desert dumping cleanups. Desert dumping is illegal, and citizens can report this activity by dialing 928-217-3867. It's a little-known program that can be life-changing for some families in Yuma County. Our grants team leads the Housing Rehabilitation Program, which you should check into. The goal of the Housing Rehabilitation Program is to alleviate immediate health and safety issues in homes of low to moderately income families that pose or would pose a serious threat to the health and safety of the occupants. Very typical repairs are the replacement of water heaters, heating and cooling systems, roofing, septic systems, and plumbing and electrical repairs. But in some cases, a home can be completely torn down and rebuilt, regardless of the reason or complexity of the repairs. Those that qualify for this program are overwhelmed by the final outcome.
So I was just hoping they helped me fix my roof, but then replace the mobile home was fantastic. I can't explain. I've been so blessed.
There are criteria for anyone applying. You can find out more by visiting yumacountyaz.gov and using the main search for housing rehabilitation. You'll find everything you need to get started. It may seem early, but the journey to election night 2020 is already underway. Along the road, you might get information you're not quite sure about. And that's why the Yuma County Recorder is already warning citizens to be wary of third-party mailers coming to your home. The Recorder and Elections Office have no oversight and are not affiliated with any third-party mailings. Historically, some of the mailers come from voter participation centers and Center for Voter Information. They send very official-looking items until you read the fine print at the bottom of the letter.
The information utilized for those is not coming from a statewide voter registration database or any other database associated with prospective voters. It is coming from various subscription lists and other data from private sources that is inaccurate as to the content of the letter.
So remember, if you're unsure of your status as a voter, or it's been a while since you've checked your registration, it's a good idea to check now. Just visit the Yuma County website and navigate to the Recorder's pages where you can check your status.
Hi, my name is Mary and this is your Health Watch. Pregnancy brings lots of changes and challenges. Vaccines can play an important role in protecting you and your newborn against diseases such as the flu and whooping cough. Whooping cough is a serious illness that can be life-threatening to a newborn. According to the CDC, receiving the whooping cough vaccine, also known as Tdap, during pregnancy can help the body start producing protective antibodies and pass them to the baby before birth. This provides some early and limited protection for babies until they are old enough to get the vaccine. A flu shot given during pregnancy can help protect both the mom and baby from the flu. Studies have shown that vaccination can reduce the risk of flu-associated acute respiratory infection in pregnant women by an average of 40%. Pregnant women who get the flu vaccine are also helping protect their babies from flu illness for the first several months after birth when babies are too young to be vaccinated. It's important that parents, siblings, grandparents, and caregivers are up to date on their vaccinations. This helps provide an added level of protection for babies and new moms. For further information, please contact the Yuma County Public Health Services District Department at 928-317-4559. This is all for now. Until next time, stay healthy, Yuma.
You may not realize it, but in 2017 there were 4,414 preventable workplace deaths. That's why your county government takes workplace safety seriously, and is why we are today highlighting the quarterly Safety Award winner. Daniel Paz has worked as the Information Technology Manager for the Yuma County Library District for just 1.5 years. Outside his regular duties, he's taken on the role of Safety Officer. In a short amount of time, he's already created a page on the library's intranet that focuses on safety. He's updated maps so everyone knows where the fire extinguishers are in the libraries, and has identified rolling carts within the libraries that are considered dangerous for the staff to use. Improved carts have since been purchased. Mr. Paz's can-do attitude and keen awareness of everything safety is why he's been awarded the Safety Excellence Award of the Quarter. Before we head out, an important opportunity for kids in Yuma County. For over a decade, the Yuma County Health District has sponsored the Body Walk for area 3rd graders. Put simply, it's a hands-on approach to teaching kids about the importance of healthy lifestyles, all while taking an imaginary trip through the body. Body Walk typically books up a full year in advance and is only offered to 3rd grade classes. This year, the Health District is allowing the public to sign up their kids to participate. This is the first time this free program has been offered to the general public and is a great way to help your kids understand the importance of a healthy lifestyle. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Well, thank you. That was good. That was great. We're going to let the lights come back on. All right, that takes care of item number 1, which is the presentation, and number 2. The item number 2 is the chairman proclaiming the year 2020 to be Lung Cancer Awareness Year in Yuma County. It's a proclamation. I'll have Supervisor Simmons read the proclamation. Supervisor Simmons.
Okay. Proclaiming 2020 as Lung Cancer Awareness Year in Yuma County. Whereas lung cancer is the 2nd most commonly diagnosed form of cancer in both men and women in the United States and is the leading cause of cancer death in the country. And whereas more than 90% of people diagnosed with lung cancer smoke a pack of cigarettes daily for at least 30 years or 2 packs a day for 15 years, and prevention and early detection can significantly reduce the number of deaths from lung cancer. And whereas researchers, scientists, and numerous nonprofit organizations are dedicated to discovering the cure for lung cancer. And whereas during the year 2020, Yuma Regional Medical Center's Cancer Center will join these efforts to prevent and detect lung cancer in early stages. And whereas Yuma Regional Medical Center's Cancer Center recognizes that education is the best tool for overcoming the thousands of deaths added to lung cancer statistics each year. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim 2020 as Lung Cancer Awareness Year in Yuma County, and encourage all Yuma County residents to support the education, prevention, and treatment efforts of those who fight against the disease.
Thank you, Supervisor Simmons. I know there's some people here from the Yuma Regional Medical Center. Mrs. Butler, Catherine Butler, she's the director of the Yuma Regional Medical Cancer Center, and Dr. Abhinav, they'll cover that. Chandra, director of the oncology program, and I know that I've got a friend here, Mrs. Sparza, Maria Sparza, who's also part of that team. Will everybody please would you say a few words, and then I'll present the proclamation to you?
All right, Linda Mendez.
Okay.
We travel in a pack. Thank you very much for having us here today. You've touched on a project that's near and dear to my heart. I'm also an oncology nurse practitioner, and have been for more than 30 years. So you're wanting to go into medicine? Very good. We need assistance in Yuma County and in other counties across the United States to deal with our lung cancer crises. I've been doing this for a very long time. It used to be that when you were diagnosed with lung cancer, we made preparations for end of life. It was a very short-lived diagnosis. We now don't have that problem. We can extend people's lives for a longer period of time, but their quality of life is poor, and eventually the disease process takes over. So I've seen improvement, but I would really like to see significant eradication. How do we eradicate? One of the biggest things that we're going to do at the Yuma Cancer Center is to develop an early detection program. As you may know, there is a piece of equipment called a low-dose CT. For those folks who smoke, for the levels that you're talking about, we can put them through low-dose CT and determine very early cancers, which are highly treatable. So for 2020, that will be our effort. You will hear more. This is definitely a significant quality effort for us at the Cancer Center. We want to improve our cancer experience. I will tell you that in your community, because I'm from the outside, I trained at MD Anderson in Houston for many, many years. We do have a history of people presenting very late in the disease process. So we want to really move to the eradication and to the early detection phase. And again, I thank you for your support and your time.
All right, we're gonna go down there and hand this over to you. Yes.
Very blessed to have a center like that here in Yuma.
I think so too. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think so.
In the middle.
She give you your wallet?
No, not she, him. Supervisor McLeod is known to reach. You should be holding. There you go. Thank you very much.
And if any of the students want to do medicine at all, please reach out to your teachers and you can contact, they'll be glad to talk to you all at any link about what it's like. There'll be 3 more chairs here.
We're not throwing them out, are we?
They're making room for some kids.
All right, it takes care of that area of the agenda, and we will then move on to the consent calendar. And I know, Paul, you got a meeting you got to go to, so we'll move this fast. The consent calendar, where the following items are listed under the consent agenda, will be considered as a group and acted upon with one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. What that means is that we have a list of items that are basically called consent items, which means that they have been discussed and they've been dealt with by the staff. And so they've gotten to a point where there's no discussion really actually needed. There is no opposition to them. So they end up in the consent calendar. And if a member of the Board of Supervisors has any questions to ask, then we pull that item out of that consent calendar and we will discuss it and take action on it separately. There is actually there's 11 items in the consent calendar. Does any of the board members want to pull any of them?
Just so you see how it works, Mr. Chairman, I'll pull number 10.
Okay. Does anybody else want to pull any other items? I'm pulling number 6 and number 11, so.
Oh, boy.
Well, you started the trend. So we're gonna pull those 3 items. Is there a motion to approve the rest of the items as
So
presented?
moved.
Second.
There's motion and a second to approve consent calendars, items 1 through 11, with the exception of 6, 10, and 11. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed by the same? Motion carries. I'll open item number 6. Item number 6 is Superior Court Administrator, and is to approve the appointment of Judge Maria Elena Cruz as Judge Pro Tempore for Superior Court in Yuma County for a period beginning January the 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020. Now, I know Maria Elena Cruz. I think we all remember Maria Elena Cruz. It wasn't that long ago. She was a Superior Court judge, and she was appointed to the appeals court. She, as far as I'm concerned, she's one of the most qualified and one of the best judges we've ever had. And we've had some great ones. We still have some great ones. One of them is in the Supreme Court. And we've had many, many great judges representing us. It's nice to see, to read that she is coming back, at least at some particular points in time. Could you explain a little bit what a judge pro tempore will do?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Supervisor Reyes, members of the board, staff. Kathy Shaven on behalf of Superior Court Administrator. Judge Cruz is interested in coming back to Superior Court to serve Yuma County again in a limited capacity as a judge pro tempore to preside over the restitution court, which was a project that she initiated.
Yes.
And it is a calendar that runs once per month, and it's designed to assist offenders in paying their restitution, fines and fees, and making the victims whole in those cases. So upon your approval of that request, she will be coming back once a month to preside over that calendar. And it is open that she could preside over other items. We haven't discussed anything else, but that is one thing. And she's very interested, obviously, in giving back to the Yuma community that has rewarded her so well, and she very much appreciates the community here. So.
Not as much as we appreciate her coming back and doing this. It's not anything unusual to me to hear that some of those judges that leave for Phoenix want to come back, at least on a temporary basis, because I think they like Yuma so much.
Well,
But we appreciate it. Yeah, sure.
I have visited restitution court, and it was fun watching money flow out of thin air and flowing to people who were harmed by these individuals. Judge Cruz does an amazing job in that court, so it's great that she'll be back to preside over that. I'm very pleased to hear that. Please give her our best.
I will, and we're very happy to have her come back, and we're looking forward to it.
Tell her that she should come back and say hi when
Okay.
she gets a chance.
I will do so.
Tell her.
Thank you, Kathy.
Any other discussion, comments? No? I'll entertain a motion to approve item 6 as presented.
Second.
So moved.
Wait a minute. You just a little ahead.
We already did.
All right, so, well,
hadn't moved
you
it yet.
actually seconded, you know,
I thought you moved it.
No, I said I'll entertain a motion. So the way it works,
My bad.
somebody makes a motion and somebody seconds it. What happened right now is that he seconded the motion before it was even made. It's just a little too quick.
As you can see,
But-
we are perfect.
Yeah. So the motion was made by Supervisor Pancrase.
I'll second
and
it.
the second was made by Supervisor McLeod.
I thought you did.
No discussion, no further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. And thank you very much.
Thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you very much.
And, before I go on, I'll make an announcement that I should have made initially at the start of the meeting. The county administrator, Susan Thorpe, is not with us. She had she had to go do something else, and she's absent. And we have Diana Gomez, who is the health district director, serving as the interim county administrator. So Diana, I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier, but it's been one of those special days where there's been a lot of new stuff happening. So thank you for serving in that capacity. So you see, even if you study as a doctor, you may end up, being the interim county administrator or something like that.
Or director of the
Or
health department.
director of the health department.
Yeah.
One of the best directors of any health departments
Yes.
anywhere.
Thank
All right, so the next item in the agenda that was pulled up from consent was item number 10, which is an engineering item, which is to adopt a resolution number 2020-01, regulating traffic at the intersection of Avenue 5E and County 12th Street, which is 40th Street.
Thank you, Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman. If I understand correctly, the four-way stop is installed. And this is a formality after the fact, right?
Correct. Chairman Reyes, members of the board. The city of Yuma was going to take that lead on installing that four-way. We just had to approve the South Lake stop sign because that was the only leg that was within the county
Right.
jurisdiction.
Right. And it just underscores the great cooperation that we have with the city of Yuma. Actually, all of the communities. in our
The
county,
next one was
all
with
work
Summer.
well together, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Is there a motion
Mr.
to
Chairman, I
approve?
move that we approve item 10 as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve item 10 as presented. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, which is engineering again, to approve the following on the Avenue B from County 16th Street to County 18th Street intersection improvement project. To approve A, an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Somerton covering the construction, maintenance, and financing for a portion of the project, and B, the construction plans and to authorize the Department of Engineering to advertise for bids. Now, I asked this, to pull this item because it's an item that's close to my heart for the last few years. I've seen the process on behalf of the county take place over a long period of time. And it's just nice, again, to acknowledge the fact that Somerton now, because Somerton, the city limits of Somerton now reach all the way up there, it's also come into this project to make it a reality, especially that intersection, the intersection of 16th and Avenue B. It's been a problematic, to say the least, intersection. There's been some improvements made there, but this is a project that it's been, like I said, close to my heart for the last at least 5 to 10 years, if not more. So it's nice to see it coming close to fruition. I've seen the utilities being moved out of the way. I've seen the what do you call those culverts or
Irrigation stand
irrigation standbacks is being moved out of the way, and I've seen some of the fencing being moved back out of the way. So it's nice to see the project ongoing, and I just wanted to bring it up so that we can talk about timing. Now, I should have actually, asked you that question initially. What's the timing? We're going out to bid, and what do we expect in time, in terms of time?
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, right now we're anticipating to actually bid the project towards the end of this month, and then bring back the bids for award next month. So once that occurs, and that'll give the utilities a little bit more time to finish relocating all their utilities. APS is out there relocating right now. CenturyLink still needs to follow right behind them, but we anticipate construction starting roughly early middle of April.
Okay,
of this
and,
year- of
and
this
it will
year.
take at least 6 to 12 months, or what? What do you expect?
But I believe it's 120 calendar days, so we're looking at about 4 months for completion.
So we're looking at maybe 6 to 7 or 8 months for the whole project to bid.
Correct. From
From
now
the
on.
beginning, from the time you go out to bid.
Correct.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Have you, traffic control, I mean, is that, I can't visualize how you're going to be able to do that street without sending people down to 3E or sending people over to the other side.
It's the contractor will be required to maintain traffic.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so it's
So
it's widening. There might be some a day or two that they might have to close off intersections, but the intent is to keep traffic flowing throughout the construction on Avenue B. There won't be too many closures.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that the city of Somerton and the county are working together to make this project a reality, which to me is long overdue. And again, I just wanted to, emphasize how much we have advanced in terms of being able to work with the other entities and making some of these projects a reality that, for some reason or another, sometimes ended up at a juncture where it was a decision that had to be made by both entities. And I go back to a retention basin close to our hearts that it's been ongoing for a long time. I'm not going to get into that because I know the attorneys are going to say that's not the agenda, but at some particular point in time, this is a great thing to see. And thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, can
Comments?
you tell the kids what your job is?
Okay, my name is Frank Sanchez. I'm the deputy county engineer. I'm from Yuma. I went to Gadsden Elementary School. I went to COFA. I ended up going to Northern Arizona University, got my engineering degree. I joined the military, helped me pay for college, did the ROTC program. So I joined the military, became an officer for a couple years, decided to come back to Yuma, and ever since I've been working with Yuma County, the Department of Engineering. So if you guys are interested, if you guys want to know any more information about engineering, please get a hold of me. I know one of your teachers, so she has my point of contact. So hopefully some of you guys are in math counts, which is coming up, right? Okay.
STEM.
So we're responsible for pretty much all the bridges and roadways, CIP projects within the county.
CIP means capital improvement projects, right?
I'm sorry, capital
Yeah, I
improvement
mean,
projects.
I always assume people will know what that means, but capital improvement projects are projects we set aside that require
Lots of
capital
money.
investment. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments? No more comments. Is there a motion to the effect of approving item number 11 as
Why
presented?
don't you make that motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve item 11 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve item 11 as presented. Is there any more discussion? If no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. That takes care of the consent items, and we'll move on to discussion and action items, where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. And I was told that our presenter, Mr. Paul Melcher, has an appointment in Phoenix that he needs to get to, so we'll get to it right away. The first item is County Administration, presentation and discussion of the Yuma County 5-year Economic Development Plan draft. Let me say something before you start, Paul. Years ago, a long time ago, longer than I hate to admit, we were talking about putting in the county strategic plan an item that required for us as a board to reduce the unemployment rate by 1%. And at that time, I said, I don't know why you would put something on the strategic plan that you really have very little control of. We didn't have any economic development director or project manager or anything like that. I'm glad to see that we're now starting to work on reducing the unemployment rate in a more, what I would say, more realistic manner, which is doing the things that we can do to help improve the economic um, uh, environment in Yuma County. Yeah, John Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, for the kids. John Smith, be careful because your time is coming up to explain what you do.
Well, first of all, I apologize for being late. My first anti-drug coalition meeting was this morning, so I didn't want to miss it for the year.
So John Smith's a county attorney, okay, and he will now explain what he does.
No, he's going to explain this afternoon, huh?
Yes, I'll meet with the
They
class
meet
at
with them
about
later
1:30
today.
at this, spoke with your instructors, and we're set to go. And then I'll hand you off to the public defender's office.
You guys are gonna get the full presentation later on today.
Yes, you
we
are.
just wanted to introduce him to you. Paul, I'm sorry, but that's what happens all the time. The curse of having to be someplace quickly is that you get delayed all the time. So go ahead.
It is, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Paul Melcher, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and Economic Development. Mr. Chair.
Can you explain what you do?
Sure. So what I do is I have two components of my job. The first one is economic development. As the chairman was explaining, one of the things that the county does is we help support recruiting and developing jobs in our region. As a county, we don't do it as much as directly as the cities. What we try to do is we try to support the development of infrastructure, job training, collaboration, those kinds of things. And we support the other entities more than we actually do work directly for economic development for the county. What we do is we instill policies and directives that help support economic development, but then on the other side, we have legislative affairs, which goes to state and federal bills and lawmaking. So as a county, we're very active, more probably active in opposing bills that are destructive or harmful to the county, both at the state and federal level, but at times, and that's the reason why I had a meeting in Phoenix this afternoon, we're actually proposing legislation which would be a benefit to the counties. We're working toward incentivizing economic development in rural areas of the state. So just in a nutshell, that's what I do for my position. Going back, I actually started as an English teacher and a coach and decided that back in the day when I was teaching in Antelope and driving, we had to travel to California and Phoenix all the time for coaching and for games and all the participation, and it just got to be such a long haul that I decided to move into public government. I started working with the city of San Luis. I actually met, back then it was, when I met Supervisor Reyes, it was about 20 years ago working for the city of San Luis. So it's interesting that we've come full circle now. He talks about those old days. I started working as a parks director, became assistant administrator, then moved over to the county and become the planning director, and then now working for economic development and legislative affairs. So it's one of those things I always remind people when you get your degree, it's important to have the degree because you don't know where you're going to end up with.
In a good way.
Mr. Chairman, as you stated though, as we move forward, one of the real keys of this has been our stakeholder and stakeholder involvement. I wanted to thank all of our stakeholders for the time and effort they put in assisting me to develop the plan. In particular, with the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, Julie Engel and Greg Levan were instrumental in helping me create the original scope of work and developing the plan, because what we wanted to do from a staff perspective is make sure that the plan supports our regional objectives and goals and doesn't establish new ones. In fact, Greg Levan is here from Greater Yuma. And that really is the theme throughout this economic development plan, is that one of collaboration. As the county, we know it's difficult at times for us to recruit companies directly into the unincorporated areas, but what we really do is we want to make sure that we're supporting those goals and objectives for our local municipal, non-government, and government agencies, and also the non-governmental agencies such as GYDC. At the beginning and back in May when I made this initial presentation, these were our focus areas. I just wanted to remind the board of what we were working on in terms of economic development, which was that specific, how do we get companies either to expand locally or to relocate locally here? Then we talked about infrastructure, which is making sure that we have the roads, broadband, utility type infrastructure in place to support development of businesses. We also want to look at workforce development. As we've talked about this, I'll get more specifics to that, but one of the things that we talked about was you have to have the workforce in place to be able to recruit companies as well, because just a spec building isn't going to always get them here. And then the other thing is collaboration. We wanted to make sure that we emphasize who our partners are and potential partnerships for the future.
Before you get really deep into the weeds with this, which you will, because this is a presentation of the kind, I was told that the students have to be in the other side of the street by 9, and so we want, by 10, excuse me, I keep saying 9, California time, man. By 10, so what we're gonna do is, this is gonna take some time, and this is a PowerPoint presentation that is going to go on for a while. We call them the dreadful PowerPoint presentations. But so what we're gonna do is thank you very much for attending, and if you wanna organize this, yes, Kevin?
A picture with the kids.
A picture with the kids is fine, yeah, sure. Yeah, that was not my usual thrust, but I think Lynn just can't help it. She's a teacher. You want to get a picture with the school.
Hi, how are you? And I put you on the spot. And I love this. If we can get, this side's over here, in the front.
Just jealous. Come on, guys. Not a problem. I continue to have.
Come on, guys. Come on back up. Come on back up. If some of you want to go down on one knee, you can.
You better go down on one knee.
Just try to get on the ends. All right. Ready? We're gonna do 2 pictures. I'm gonna do 2 here and then 2 off the good camera. Right? 1, 2, and again 1, 2.
This is our director of communications, by the way. This is
What
Kevin.
are you doing?
And his name is
As little as possible.
It's called Jack of all trades, master of none.
For all that.
We keep telling you that every time you want a salary increase.
Yeah, but it's way too wide. Oh, there we go.
All right. Use a regular camera.
Right, 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, have fun. Good luck. Have a good day. Start planning your future. I can't tell you how important that is. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for bringing the kids down. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
This is gonna feel lonely now. Echar un cafecito. Hazme un favor, corre la junta. Me hablaron de la high school, de la junior high donde está mi niña.
Ajá.
I don't know what they want, so I better go outside for a minute. and
Oh,
check,
okay.
but I hope she's not. It's probably her wanting me to pick her up early.
Well, that empty the room out.
Still gonna have my drink of coffee here.
We're gonna take 5 minutes to settle a little bit before we go back. Sorry, Paul, but we had to get him out of here somewhere, and we didn't want him to be late.
It was as good a time as any, Mr. Chair.
They're gonna go meet the recorder.
I didn't want him to fall asleep at the presentation, so. All right. Is everybody settled? All right, there's plenty of space now. It's gonna feel a little weird now, but,
I don't think these chairs are going to be in high priority, Mr. Chairman.
well, we should have, take some pictures of why we need a bigger auditorium. All right, Paul, continue, yeah.
So,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, as we had talked about in last May, one of the things that we were having a focus was to ensure that as we recruit new businesses into the community, that we also be cognizant of the ways that we can enhance or promote the expansion and development of existing businesses. There's going to be a common theme throughout the document, and that's talking about home growing things. We want to home grow businesses. We talk about incubators as means of startups, entrepreneurs, innovation, but we also want to talk about that in terms of workforce development. As we look and we start recruiting within this base of businesses and companies here, we have a real interesting concept of how we achieve that balance between the incentives, actually providing those incentives and seeing how we can work those into homegrown businesses, but also how we can look at financing programs and help support those businesses moving forward. What we've really learned and identified out of this is initially back in 2016, Yuma County had developed an incentive program. We had started with infrastructure reimbursements first. Now we've moved on to job training incentives based on companies meeting job and benefit milestones. What we really have noticed and has come to the forefront is the impact that the state Arizona Commerce Authority can play in recruiting businesses. So as we look at it moving forward, one of the things that we'll keep in mind is the county doesn't always have to bear the entire load in terms of providing incentives. You can see from the extensive list on the right, there are a number of incentives that can be provided through the Commerce Authority. And I can think of a couple projects already where it was amazing to see how much the Commerce Authority was able to put forward in terms of millions of dollars in incentives to those companies. So not only at the local level are we making incentives a priority, but the state has been for a while, and it's good to see how we can partner together with the state to be able to provide a complete incentive package in terms of recruitment and expansion. As we move forward, one of the things that we really focused on was an understanding of what it would take to support our core industries, those being ag, military, aerospace, and tourism. We added manufacturing on there as an additional component because we're looking at diversifying the local economy. When times of recession hit, we want to make sure that the economy is strong enough that it can weather and we don't suffer from having one of the core industries being hit inordinately harder than any other ones. But we also found out that healthcare systems have surpassed tourism and manufacturing in terms of its value to the local economy. As we were talking about earlier about recruiting for nurses and the importance of that STEM aspect of it, that is one of the priorities, because as we expand the medical facilities, we also have a need for nurses and developing that pipeline for other healthcare system workers. As we looked at strengthening, a lot of what we got from the stakeholders was based on legislative infrastructure and planning and education employment comments. In terms of legislation, I think one of the most important aspects of it is making sure what we've done and we continue to do is fight for the ag community and military communities whenever possible. When we look at that overall, we not only look at the importance of federal legislation that's taking into consideration new guest worker programs, H-2A, and so on, but also at the local level to make sure that the zoning ordinances and our other documents are also in compliance with or help support local industries. In terms of infrastructuring, it's becoming increasingly important to look at that as a package and not just one. So if we strengthen roads, we have to also take into consideration the impact broadband and local utilities are having. And then also education and employment, one of the great collaborations that we have, and particularly with Supervisor Porches and Forefront ED is an understanding is what we do for education. How we're creating those collaborations not only at the local level between high schools, steady, and the local colleges and universities, but what we're doing at a binational level. And again, it's really making sure that we're growing our own workforce out here. We have a lot of persons who are transitioning not only into skills, but we need to also consider the future skills as well as automation and technology continues to advance. Mr. Chairman, what I wanted to show you here is summarize some of the larger projects that we identified through collaboration with our local municipal entities. Looking at Raleigh Field and the Avenue E Rural Connector are very important, making that connection from the port of entry. Looking at the future development of Raleigh Field as a fly-in field that support port of entry and activities in the eastern portion of San Luis and that southern portion of Yuma County. There's also another area within the city of Yuma where we're talking about 32nd Street that's over in between the Marine base and around to about 5.5E. It's an area of lacking infrastructure there, but it's also has several thousand acres of light industrial that are really ready for development but just need that infrastructure support. And then we also recognize the importance of regionalizing natural gas and that access to it. Yes?
Oh, is that supposed to be 3E?
It is supposed to be 3E.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
So what's important for us is developing these regional partnerships because even the Avenue E Rural Connector runs all the way to Somerton. So we're really looking at a corridor of having the port of entry and then running by Raleigh Field and connecting eventually at Somerton with a lot of the acres that they have planned down there for light industrial and warehousing commercial. As we look at this, again, Mr. Chairman, the point of emphasis is just reiterating the fact that broadband is becoming as important as road infrastructure in terms of how we look at recruiting businesses, but expanding the existing businesses as well. The access to information and the ability to have consistent broadband is going to be key to the future, and that's one of our points of emphasis moving forward through a broadband action team that's been started here locally. In terms of workforce development, we really wanted to have that focus in terms of what we're doing for growing our own workforce. And again, that does start at the 8th grade, because one of the real points of emphasis is beginning STEM-related classwork and courses, not only in 8th grade, but now we're talking about K through 6, moving that through 8th grade, and then having that help and assist in a career choice moving forward. As Supervisor Pancrase noted, the importance of having a college education is not overwhelmed by the actual value of also having a certification. It's the demonstration that a worker can, possesses skills versus just having a degree anymore. What we're also looking at is viewing our workforce as a region, both as a binational and by state. We're looking at the fact that we have Imperial Valley. We could start recruiting workers there, but we could also look at a workforce that might be present in Mexicali and San Luis Rio, Colorado as well. Again, we're looking at the pipeline for specifics. We know that we have a nursing and teacher shortage. So the local colleges and universities are trying to develop pipelines in order to get interest at an early level and to have those students continue on to get their necessary certifications. There are also some that are moving forward in construction, HVAC, and engineering. So we're really looking at those STEM courses to help support that. And then also just reinforcing the fact that we have a lot of workers transitioning to get introductory skills, but they'll also need advanced skills in the future. In terms of the overall regional development, our collaboration is going to be very important. We look at the riverfront as one of the areas that for which we can continue to develop. We have a national heritage area, but there's still a lot of the riverfront that hasn't been developed. That'll be very important for the tribes and working with the city to develop some kind of plan to address that. We're also looking at Mexico through Forefront ED and through our specific objectives there. We're really focusing on workforce development, infrastructure, also utility development. We talked earlier about that regional natural gas, but as we develop our own regional assets, those could also tie into Mexico as well to help support some of the necessities of the maquiladoras that exist along the northern part. Just as an added, before I had made this presentation, we have the passage of the USMCA as well. So that'll help encourage that foreign direct investment along the northern parts of the border. We're also looking at the local groups. One of the things that we know meeting with stakeholders is it's great that we're attempting to recruit and to develop this workforce, but we also have to understand what will keep them here. So as we move forward, work-play study is going to be very critical in identifying necessary amenities and how we develop as a community to make sure that we not only attract a workforce, but are able to keep them here as well. Mr. Chair, I'm not going to go through all of the prioritized objectives. You have a condensed list that's part of your packets. I just wanted to highlight a couple of these on the slides for the public, but just to note that in the terms of the proposed plan, the very first priority, which might not seem common to economic development, is relocation of the Yuma County Fairgrounds to a permanent site. What that does, though, it helps support MCAS and the fact that we want to remove any obstacles to future operations, knowing that the F-35, we already have a number of squadrons here and they're looking to expand. So we want to make sure that as we look at our core industries, that we continue to support those and eliminate any of those and mitigate any of those hazards or obstacles to them moving forward and developing. So I just wanted to also identify that one of the things that we'll be working on in terms of broadband, though, is regional economic development. As I had alluded to earlier with the students, we're meeting today with the Arizona Commerce Authority to push forward some legislation to see if we can incentivize rural development. We're attempting to do that in two ways. One is to identify high impact projects, and then also to look at infrastructure reimbursement. We know that with infrastructure being such a tough sell sometimes, in order to get a developer to invest in that, we're looking at some tax offsets to allow those developers to recoup their investments in infrastructure. Mr. Chairman, just a couple of the other highlights. A lot of this focuses on collaboration and multi-agency projects, all the way down to looking at how we're going to promote Yuma County through the development of the website, becoming more focused on recruitment activities through public engagement, and looking to the future for the development of future assets. Mr. Chair, that's kind of my intent today was to give you an update as the board, to let you know that we have a public comment period that's already in place. We'll be taking comments from the public through February 21st, and I would anticipate bringing the plan back for board approval on March 9th. I would be happy to entertain any questions or comments the board might have.
Mr. Chair?
Sure, Supervisor.
Paul, I read in the draft of the Yuma County 5-year economic development plan, and I want to thank you and GYEDC for all the work that entailed. It's a wonderful. It takes a little while to read, but it is very, very, very detailed and very, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it was very informative.
Yeah.
Meeting with all of the stakeholders was, I know it sounds kind of nerdy, but it was fantastic to get that sense of where everybody was going, because sometimes we just don't get the opportunity to sit down and talk on a face-to-face. So
yeah, good.
Did you provide this summary of the Yuma County 5-year economic development plan prioritized objectives?
Yes.
Was it only 2 pages?
Yes, because what I did was I took out the descriptions of each one of those. That's the truncated summary. It should be, unless there's a page missing.
And it probably is. It says we only have 1 in the 3rd page, so the 2nd page is missing. When you get a chance, just
It's probably
make
supposed
copies.
to be on the other side.
They missed 1 page.
Okay, the copier must have missed a page.
Yeah, the copy.
Okay.
The copy. All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
You know, Paul, when you mentioned training our workforce and looking outside for employees, at what time or at what age should we start looking in our own county to start training people? Not everybody goes to college.
Right.
So, I know it's a kind of toughy question there. At what age or should we start recruiting? Because, I mean, we want them to, if we have our jobs here, for them to at least be the first ones instead of looking outside of the county first, So.
Well, thank you for the question, Supervisor Porteous. I'll answer it this way. I won't identify the specific age, but I will identify the fact that even the college is beginning to recruit for those workers, because they're going in at the high school level and providing those incentives to, at the low cost, taking the coursework as soon as they can in college. So that gets that head start on either a degree or certification. My own philosophy is I don't think we can start STEM education any too soon. I think that as long as there could be a more specific developed program for STEM education and moving forward, when you look at it in terms of the age groups, looking at the math, science cohorts, and so on. But I know that there's an interesting way that you can look at it, because I volunteered last year, I think at Centennial, if I remember right, it was Centennial Middle School, for their interviews, and they gave us a tour of the school where they're already doing robotics at 7th and 8th grade. So I think that gives you an idea that, I think you could start the recruiting and the training as early as possible and start getting people accustomed to doing math, science again.
I think that your question has more to do with how do you get a program together?
Yeah.
That's right. How do you get a program together so people?
That's what
J-10
Yeah.
It's already in the high school.
Yeah. I was gonna.
JTEDs and then steady.
All right. I was gonna say, look, if you wanna see a program that works, look at what the Gadsden School District has done, getting teachers to stay.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they go through a process where they start early with them, so that when they finish getting their degree in education or something, they're already hired by the district. In other words, they basically don't allow them to get out there and start finding other places to go to work because they get paid better or anything else. They have a plan where the school will help you get through your educational to your bachelor's degrees or whatever it takes to become a registered teacher. But they want you to stay. It's like I don't know, similar to what we do with well, I think attorneys, we just help them pay for, yeah, attorneys, we had a plan for attorneys, but I think I was looking more at what we do with correction officers and you know, and police departments where you pay for the training for 3 years, but they have to commit to work, you know, for a period of time with the department before they go someplace else. I think that the Gaston School District's done an excellent job. I was at one of their presentations where they asked everybody that went to AWC to stand up, and there was like 250 people, teachers that work in the district that went to AWC, and they asked how many went to Northern Arizona University, and a bunch of people stood up, and it's sort of like growing their own. I mean, they're going through a process, and they whomever wants to go into the educational field, they identify them and make and get them on a track that actually, you know, make them stay instead of letting them go someplace else and go to the university someplace else and all of a sudden see the opportunity someplace else to stay. They keep them in the system, and I think that that's pretty much what I think we need to do, because once we send our kids to Tucson, once we send them to Phoenix, to Tempe, and once we send them to Flagstaff, there's always that risk, right, that they're going to see and like the big, you know, big city lifestyle, and they will stay. And not that we don't want them to see that, but we want them to visit and come back. And so, you know, that's the idea to me, is how do we develop those kind of programs that allows us to help people get to their degree that they want, but also incentivize them to stay in the community and actually, you know, give back to the community. And I think the key is once you find that trade, that those people in that trade help these students achieve what they want to achieve, but at the same time have them commit to come back to the community or to stay in the community and do something to pay back that support. Anyway.
Thank you. Well, and I hope too, Mr. Chairman, people understand the broadband issue in Yuma County. Everything nowadays, new businesses and stuff rely on that broadband infrastructure. Agriculture is exploding as far as using broadband. And the more people we bring in, the civilian population using broadband. So the more we can fight to want to upgrade our broadband in this area, the better it is countywide.
And
I agree.
Definitely, I agree with that. And another comment that has to do, and I'm glad that Diana stayed here today, because it has a lot to do with the medical tourism and medical links between the medical fields in Mexico and the medical fields in this side. What you guys are doing with education, you know, where you have the schools in Mexico, the university in Mexico connected to the universities on this side, so that they understand each other and complement each other, I don't think happens in the medical arena. There's a certain not the health district. The health district's doing an excellent job. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'd like to use them as an example, because I think sometimes the medical community here and the medical community in Mexico end up in a sort of competing way. You know, they don't. I mean, the medical personnel here do not technically appreciate what, you know, the medical personnel do in Mexico. And I'm telling you, I mean, there should be some sort of connection that takes that benefits from the fact that there's a lot of inter-border collaboration, and that there's a lot of inter-border illnesses that don't respect borders. I mean, if we're reading the news today and we read about a illness in China that is, you know, an infection, that's right. You would understand that living in San Luis, Arizona, and living in San Luis, Mexico, that wall or border doesn't really exist for tuberculosis, for some of the other, for Zika and some of the other illnesses. So that communication between those fields probably is something that will benefit this community. And it's well known that Yuma has a very, very progressive attitude about, you know, systems, I mean, border systems. And so I'd like you to think about that in terms of tourism, because I think in some ways you have this, and it's my personal perspective, that you have this perception that that the United States has the best health system in the world, but not necessarily accessible to everyone. While in Mexico, all healthcare is almost accessible. It may not be the best, but you can get it the day you need it. You know, I'm going back to that old example that if you want to see a doctor here, they'll tell you take a pill and see me in 2 weeks. Well, that's 2 weeks later for the appointment. There should be some sort of connection. You guys have done that very well in the educational field. Let's see if we can do something in the medical field. It may be an area that we haven't explored that has a lot of possibilities of success.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
And I think you can consult with Diana, Mrs. Gomez, and she will let you know. She's got all kinds of contacts. Anything else? Thank you, Paul. That was a very good presentation. I don't know what time you have to be over in Phoenix, but you need to.
Safe trip.
I have
You have
12
one more
minutes.
thing. Yes, we have
But
one more
I've got
item.
the next item anyway,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
so.
okay.
The next item is discussion. Do you want us to do anything on the plan, or is it just a presentation? You bring it back after.
It'll be back in March.
Okay, all right. All right, so the next one is also for county administration and discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items. A report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impacts to Yuma County, to update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities, and authorize the chairman to sign a letter of opposition to House Bill 2030, amending sections whatever of Arizona revised statutes, which proposes to transfer jurisdiction over the ports of entry from the Arizona Department of Transportation to the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Before you start, that was one of the most, well, that was one of the topics that was on top of the list of the discussions of the Arizona Border County Coalition meeting in Tucson last Friday. The transfer of responsibilities from a regulatory agency, which is ADOT, to a law enforcement agency, which is DPS, and what it could mean to the traffic coming across the border. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if you want to deal with that issue first, because that would be part of my presentation.
No, it's part of your presentation. I just wanted to.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll provide you my first summary of the bills so far that we have. We have 2 LEPC meetings coming up, both with CSA and with, we have a Monday meeting with ACO, so we'll get more bill numbers identified with the overall legislative priorities. Those went out in terms of the agenda. So I wanted to give you the primary, so this is how we'll start the bill tracking here. I'll be providing those descriptions in more detail whenever everything gets dropped in terms of the specific bills attached to a priority. But I did want to turn your attention to the second page. What I've already started doing is populating the secondary bills that aren't affiliated either with ACO or with CSA. I'll be able to provide more detail on these bills, particularly the ones that are included in the unshaded area down below. Those were just released by RTAC in terms of rural transportation and those impacts this morning. I did want to show you that the highlighted area, the darker gray that comes out, was supported by ACO. The lighter gray are those bills that are being recommended in opposition by ACO. And Mr. Chairman, one of those is, you have House Bill 2458 that was related to ADOT, and that was the other portion of it, where they're, not only are they looking at moving that responsibility under ADOT, but then making it almost as though they are, in addition to that, peace officers. So it's just really solidifying that move over. So there are 2 of them. So at the next board meeting, we'll also have a letter of opposition to that bill as well, as they get partnered up with 2030. So those kind of go in conjunction. I wanted to also just highlight a couple. When you're looking at the election ones, the early ballot, here we go, in terms of 2 items again regarding early ballots. Regarding one of them, and they're kind of loosely worded at this time, but they would require some sort of ID to be able to drop off early ballots, and you might also have a requirement that you'd have to log into the system. So that if you're trying to prove that that early ballot is yours, you'd have to show the ID. It kind of goes contrary to what the existing early ballot process is, because right now there's not really an enforcement mechanism that was part of dropping off and limiting the dropping off early ballots. So that's kind of 2 attempts to shore that up, so it almost limits it to the person who's walking in the door to drop off early ballots. There are a couple here that go along with taxation. In speaking with County Assessor Joe Worley, I wanted to bring up SCR 1003 as the primary one, just to put it up in front of your radar. We're not really sure if this has much of a life moving forward, but what this would do is, moving after 2021, would exempt all commercial industrial businesses that would file new and develop new from the first $2 million of property taxes.
So yes, as you're looking at it, that would essentially just remove that portion of that grouping from having to pay property tax. The other aspect that's included in the bill is you could kind of get a loophole here. You could go back, refile your company, and then you would be exempt. So really, if it's looking at a property tax exemption for commercial industrial type uses, that seems to be the long play here. There's a
Whoa.
different way to do that could come about, but I just wanted to put this forefront on there because that's a big item just to be that I'll be tracking to see how that moves forward. Then the other one, a lot of them have to do with autonomous vehicles, safety, those kind of things in terms of the transportation. Specifically, they were asking for ADOT to put signs that people would be required to travel in the right-hand lane of an interstate, stay out of the left lane except to pass. The autonomous vehicles, making sure that there are safety mechanisms that can't be overridden in autonomous vehicles, and then have some autonomous vehicle reporting as those programs move forward. So, Mr. Chair, that's a pretty quick summary in terms of what we're doing, and that's what I'll be tracking so far at the state level. Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Paul, the mobile home property tax,
Oh, yes.
House Bill 2126, and then there's another one that has to, we have a lot of mobile homes here in Yuma. What is that about?
So the attempt here is to extend the time that a mobile home owner has ability to satisfy any liens, property tax liens, so that right now the system is very strict. In approximately 6 months, you can go from a lien status to losing the mobile home. They're trying to extend it out to approximately 2 years before the loss of the mobile home would occur.
Because mobile homes are personal property.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The handout that you gave us, the first page is basically the legislative priorities of both the ACO and CSA legislative priorities, and that's how you want to track this, right?
Yes, I will. Once we get all of the bills attached to those various items, then we'll start populating the rest of the columns.
Right. Okay, any other questions? The only thing is that this is also the part where I think we talk a little bit about legislative priorities, but we have this trip coming up to Washington, D.C. How far are we along in setting down the priorities for that trip, the legislative priorities for that trip?
So you'll have the latest and greatest list of talking points for February in review.
All right, latest and greatest.
Yes, I've been working to develop some of those. The toughest ones right now are in conjunction with the San Luis port, how we're going to address talking about that, because really what it came down to on that cut, there were no defined cuts in terms of, overall it was 248 million ask, and when it was cut down to the 153 plus or minus, it didn't say reduce this by 3 lanes here, there weren't anything attached to it. So if you just cut it, it's almost analogous to, let's say I give you $15 for a $20 toaster oven. Well, what do you pull off the knobs? There's no real connection between the reductions and some of the infrastructure. So what we're really going to focus on there is you can't just cut it arbitrarily. The need has to be met, not just reduce it by an amount that doesn't get you anywhere.
Or at least argue the point that, those are multi-year funding projects anyway, most of the time anyway. So we're just going to have to sort of be more specific about, okay, fine. So you're short this much. The process is going to take 1.5 years to design. Are you guys, you guys need to know that you're going to need the rest of the money to actually make that project go. Those type of arguments need to be made early, right? Now, I do remember when that project was a $67 million project a few years ago. So I'm also interested in finding out what the basis for that cut was. Weird. Anyway, well, thank you very much.
And then the last thing we have is the letter of support.
We do need a motion for that.
Yes.
I'll entertain a letter of support. If you understand what we're talking about, and I think you all do, I think we'll sign a letter of support. I'll sign a letter of support. We'll send a letter of opposition, not support.
Yeah.
A letter of opposition. I think it's been drafted. It's ready to go. It just needs
our signature.
Yes, it just authorizes the chairman to sign. And Mr. Chair, you're right. It's pretty much a draft template from the number of letters that have already gone forward. I know that there have been, like the Nogales Port Authority has sent in a letter in opposition.
Water Coalitions is sending a letter of opposition.
So there are a number of
border.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, the number of letters already out there,
YABC.
so they're pretty much all saying the same as, this doesn't make any sense. We've already made the improvements through ADOT. Any transition would likely jeopardize those improvements and arrangements that have already been made, and why fix something that's not in need of fixing?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
I move that we authorize the chairman to sign a letter of opposition to House Bill 2030.
Second.
Motion and second to authorize the chairman to sign a letter of opposition to House Bill 2030. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Wasn't there a companion bill?
Yes.
Yes, that was the 2048 I mentioned.
It was a peace
Right
officer.
here.
Yes, so the first phase was just moving it under ADOT, and the next was taking care of the police powers portion of that and the authorizations for it.
Do we need to do an additional letter?
I put it on for the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't have time to put it on here. We just got.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
Yeah.
All right.
But his port of entry one has a
So there is
second read
discussion.
already. Oop.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
All right. After the discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I think we already
Motion
did that.
carries. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We already voted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate
voted
it.
twice. Good luck. Have a good trip. The
Safe.
next one is recorder and elections. To require the county recorder or other officers in charge of elections to calculate voter turnout for the city of Yuma elections as prescribed by statute and present said calculations to the board of supervisors, and B, having received the voter turnout for said elections, the board will determine whether the city of Yuma is required pursuant to statute to consolidate its election dates effective to the 2022 election cycle. Want to explain that one? That one sounded complex to me.
It's
I thought the city
interesting.
of Yuma would have to make that decision by themselves.
I think first what you have to do is, this is Mary Fontes. I'm the election director for Yuma County. Robin had another obligation, so she couldn't make it and asked me to present. So members of the board, I appreciate your time. A bill was passed in 2018. It was House Bill 2604, and it requires us to determine whether a city election or any political subdivision has to join us in our consolidated statewide elections. So it was kind of a complicated process. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but I do have a presentation, and I have to ask for a motion to proceed with the presentation.
Sure, Supervisor McLeod, hold on a minute.
Mary, why are we taking this action when the city is addressing that issue through the Charter Review Committee right now?
The statute requires that the Board of Supervisors do this, and I'll get into the statutes.
Okay, thank you.
We need to tell them, do it, damn it.
Well, they are. The committee's already approved.
Yeah. Well, if I get it correctly, though, you need to have if they have lower than a 25%.
Correct.
Yeah.
Turnout.
Turnout, then they have to consolidate.
Mm-hmm.
More than 25? Okay, go ahead, explain it.
Okay.
It's a lot easier. As long as you do it in 1 minute or less, it's fine.
I'm trying.
If
as
we
I
don't
said,
interrupt you,
in 2018, do I get a motion to proceed
not yet.
with the presentation?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. In 2018, House Bill 2604 was passed, and it added this statute 16-204.01, which discusses the consolidation of political subdivisions. And in this case, we're talking about the city of Yuma. The statute states that if there is a significant decrease in voter turnout for a political subdivision, the political subdivision has to hold their elections on a statewide consolidation date, would be the even numbered years.
Mm-hmm.
Then to determine the significant decrease, you compare the most recent gubernatorial election to the most recent election in which candidates were elected for the political subdivision. And the city held their last election in November. And in comparing the gubernatorial election with their election, we have seen that there is more than a 25% decrease in voter turnout. And you'll see that here. Now, the Board of Supervisors, this is the statute that says, or the part of the statute that describes what the Board of Supervisors has to do. they're required to have the county recorder or the officer in charge of election calculate the decrease in the voter turnout and then announce the determination whether to consolidate or not. So we need the two motions today. The first is to allow the officer in charge of election or the county recorder, in this case it's me, to present the findings to the board. And that's where I don't know if I need a motion now.
You will probably.
Yes.
Or direction at least.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know what statute requires, but I guess if this is a statute, then we need to, we need to have you do it and then bring it out to us and let's hope the city feels receptive to statute. But I think that the issue they may have is that they may not be able to do it without a charter change, which, they run under a charter, so. I don't know.
They're working on the charter.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, well, anyway, what you want from us is direction or a motion basically directing you to calculate the voter turnout and bring the results to us,
Which we did.
which you did.
It's next.
Okay, well then there's no point in us authorizing you to do it, you already done it. Go ahead.
Okay. So here's the 2018 general election, and for the city of Yuma, there were 30,331 ballots cast, and there were 41,034 voters, and so there was a 73.92% voter turnout.
Mhm.
That was good.
That was 18.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that was during an even numbered year where they were on
It was the governor, right?
gubernatorial election. So in 2019, they held their general election. They had 7,999
It was a little bit,
ballots.
Wow.
Big change.
Jeez.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
With 43,385 voters, so it was 18.44% voter turnout.
Whoa.
So here's the comparison.
But there's only a 55% deviation, I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's.
So based on that, the city of Yuma will require to consolidate its election dates, right? And we get to tell them that? Is that what it boils down to? We get to say, you have to?
No, I think what it says is that we can't hold their election.
Yeah, well.
They'd have to buy the machines and they could hold their own if they wanted to.
I think it's a little more than that.
Yeah, it's more than that. So here's your results with the determination, 55.48% deviation. And so the city of Yuma should be required to join the consolidated statewide elections.
I think we just,
I know what it says.
the
It says,
motion would be to verify your data, basically, right? Instead of telling them what to do and not to do.
No.
I wanna tell them what
Actually,
to
you
do and
have
not to do, man.
you have to determine whether the city of Yuma is required
We have.
to consolidate election dates based on this calculation.
So we gotta tell them, look, you gotta consolidate your elections, basically. And then, because otherwise, we're not gonna hold your elections anyway. We're not gonna be able to run your elections. What you're saying is that they may be able to run their own elections without us, and that takes us out of telling them what to do. I still like to tell them what to do. So,
You make the motion.
This is your
I'll make the motion.
opportunity.
No, we're just gonna tell them what the results are. That's it, and then let them figure out a way to meet the statute. That's basically it, right? Is that right, legal?
Yeah, I think you can just verify the results that are presented,
Send
have
it
them
to-
presented to the, in this case, the city, and let them know that pursuant to that statute, through our election officer, you'll be required to consolidate pursuant to statute.
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would move that we verify the data that the elections director has brought to us today and notify the city of Yuma that we won't be able to hold their elections.
Well, I don't think we
then
need
off
to do
here.
that. I don't.
How's that?
Don't be chicken. Just tell them you have to, consolidate. No, I'm just kidding. Let's work on the wording, because I think what we want to do is we want to tell them, look, we've gone through the process that statute requires for us to go through. We're giving you the results. You have to take action either way. It's your
That's my motion.
Repeat the motion.
Verify the dates and notify the city of Yuma that we will.
The data.
Okay.
See, but that's.
Verify the data and notify the city of Yuma that we will not be able to hold their election.
That's even worse.
In and off here.
No, that's not what we need
Okay,
to tell
then
them.
it dies for lack of a second. You were
Definitely. We have gone through the process, so the motion should be that the elections department has gone through the process of verifying the numbers that under state statute determines whether a city has to consolidate their elections, and here are the results, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it's in your agenda. You just want to verify and make the determination, you can do it by motion, that the city of Yuma is required pursuant to ARS 1620-204.01 to consolidate its election dates effective for the 2022 election cycle.
So moved. Just take the first part out.
I'll second that.
Well,
So it would be, the motion would be this. The motion would read this way. Having received the voter turnout for the 2018 general election, 2019, the board has determined that the city of Yuma is required pursuant to Arizona revised statute to consolidate its election dates effective for the 2022 election cycle. Okay?
Perfect.
Whatever they do with it, it's their decision. Correct? Desiree, would you read that very wisely worded decision?
Thanks to John.
Thank you. Legal?
Having received, after receipt of.
The city of Yuma is required pursuant to Arizona revised statute 16-204.
0.01.
To consolidate its election dates effective for the 2022 election cycle.
Yes, that was sort of like what we will say, but the motion needs to say we have received the voter turnout and have determined that the city of Yuma is required. That's kind of the wording.
That's right, it's part B of your.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to make sure that we worded.
Just word that sentence, right?
Yeah, that we word that sentence correctly.
Yeah,
That simply says that we're ordering them to consolidate their election. Based on statute, we are given broad authority over there. Not gonna go in the motion.
The state says this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, that's right. Blame the state.
I know.
So how does it read now?
It's reading the same because I'm trying to.
We want to make sure before we vote that it reads.
Okay, so the first part, can you clarify that for me regarding?
If you have the
Having
agenda,
received-
just repeat what comes after B.
Having received the voter turnout, the problem for me is for said elections, because we have to basically say what elections, I think, in the motion. The board has determined.
Having received
Yeah,
the
it,
voter
it, should,
turnout
it, doesn't-
for
it shouldn't
said
say
election.
shall, it should say has determined. Those are the changes that you need to wordsmith. The board shall determine is not what we're gonna say in that motion. In that motion, it should say the board has determined that the city of Yuma is required,
Mhm.
okay? So it can't read the same way as it's presented here. It has to be.
So having received the voter
Exactly.
turnout for said elections, the board has determined the city of Yuma is required.
Pursuant to Arizona.
ARS to consolidate its election dates effective for the 2022 election.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Why don't you replace said elections to 2018 and 2019 elections?
General elections.
Yes.
General and local elections.
Okay.
All right.
I think I got it now.
Well, can we add that it's the turnout, the difference was 55 point some percent? No, I'm just kidding.
Wow,
Don't have to
that's
have all that
huge
stuff.
amount.
No, so how does it read now?
I have a motion by Supervisor Reyes, seconded by Supervisor Pancrazzi. Having received the voter turnout for 2018 and 2019 general elections, the board has determined the city of Yuma is required pursuant to ARS 16-204.01 to consolidate its election dates effective for the 2022 election cycle.
So this basically formalizes what they've already been doing, because I've been reading in the newspaper and looking at TV, and they're already looking at consolidation. So, all right, that sounds very good. There's been a motion, a second, to do just that. Any discussion?
I have one more thing to say. It's going to save the city a lot of money. It will. It'll save them money because they're going to be joined with all the other political subdivisions.
They won't have to hold a
So the
separate
cost of the elections will go down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they won't have to have one. There'll be
It won't
an
be on
extra
their
one,
own.
an extra
Yeah.
one. All right, you heard the motion. Any more discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mary. That was very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
The next item in the agenda, I think the next items in the agenda are the planning and zoning agenda. Full legal description of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. We have expedited rezoning and public hearings. These items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately following action on expedited items. There are two expedited items, both from Development Service and the Planning and Zoning Division. One is rezoning case number 1908, and the other one is rezoning case 1910. The first one is John and Felicia Lynn request rezoning of 2.0 acres for rural area, 10-acre minimum to suburban site build 2-acre minimum, and 5.94 gross acres to suburban site build 5-acre minimum. Assessors parcel number 725-53-008 located in the southwest corner of County 13.5 Street, Avenue 7 and a quarter east, Yuma, Arizona. And the other one is rezoning case 1910, where Dal Robbins and Associates, the agent for TDI Holdings, requests the rezoning of a parcel that's 10 acres, gross acres in size, from rural area 10-acre minimum to suburban site build 2-acre minimum, and assessors parcel number 725-53-002, located in the southeast corner of County 13.5 Street, Avenue 7E. Now, both of them are in the expedited rezoning and public hearing. Do any board member wants to pull it out? Discuss it? Pull the item out, discuss it. If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 1 and 2. No.
Yeah.
You have to have a public hearing no matter what?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, I don't understand that. I get it, but I mean, if we're gonna do the expedited.
It's just to phrase the presentation if you want to open to the public in case they have comments.
All right,
And then
okay.
you move to consent.
Okay, so, okay. I've only been doing this for 22 years. I don't know why I get this, flag. I'm gonna open both of those items to a public hearing, which is weird, but, does anybody here have anything to say about this? And remember, expedited means that everything has gone through a process and has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission staff, okay? So I always warn people, if you're ahead of the game, don't mess it up. So I'm opening this up for a public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to make any comment about this? If not, then I'll take it back to the board. Thank you very much. Will the board make a motion to approve these two items?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve rezoning case number 1908 and 1910 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second to approve items 1 and 2 as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? For those of you who waited this long to get these items, done, congratulations. This is a time well spent. Now, I'll move on to rezoning, which is a regular public hearing items, where staff will make a full presentation of each of the following items, followed with separate discussion and public hearing and action by the Board of Supervisors. The first item here is the Development Service Planning and Zoning Division. It is a minor amendment, case number 2019-MA-02, Dal Robbins and Associates, agent for Yuma Irrigation District, request to change the land use designation of a 7.05 acre portion of a parcel 107.81 gross acres in size from agricultural, rural, residential to industrial. Assessors parcels number 182-28-004, located in the vicinity of the southeast corner of Avenue 12E, which is the alignment, and County 8th Street, the alignment, Yuma, Arizona. Now, staff, this is a full regular public hearing item, so we'll have you do the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, presenting minor amendment 2019 MA-02. The intent is to allow the rezoning of the state portion 7.05 acres from rural area 20-acre minimum to heavy industrial uses for industrial. This is the vicinity and land use map showing the portion to be amended, highlighted and cross-hatched. It's located within the parcel, subject parcel. Land uses to the north are industrial and local commercial, and parcels to the west, south, and east are agricultural, rural, residential. This is a site plan provided by the applicant, depicting the portion of the parcel to be amended. This is an aerial view showing the extent of the current parcel. The purple triangle shows the location of the portion to be amended. This is a view looking east at the subject portion from the county, the alignment of the extension of County 8th Street, looking east. From within the parcel, this is looking north. Staff received no comments from property owners. The Planning Commission recommends approval, and planning staff concurs with this recommendation based on the following. The amendment will allow for industrial development that is consistent with and does not negatively impact the existing industrial and agricultural character of the area. Number two, the change will allow for consistent zoning and land use development patterns. Number three, the amendment will not adversely affect the health or safety of present or future residents. Mr. Chairman, there's a rezoning case that will be heard of the Planning Commission next week on the 28th, rezoning case 1909, and staff is expected to bring in front of this board March 9th. And this concludes this presentation, Mr. Chairman.
But normally we get them almost at the same time.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. There was a little oversight that the request didn't determine the minimum size.
Oh.
So that's why we have to bring it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to be reheard. It was just plain heavy industrial, which we don't have in the zoning ordinance, and it has to be, say, the applicant determined choose the 8,000 minimum, and that's why the Planning and Zoning Commission has to rehear it.
Oh, just as a reminder for the board members that normally what we get is a minor amendment and then the rezoning next to it. If the minor amendment doesn't pass, then technically the rezoning is just not even worth discussing. In this particular case, we're doing this, a minor amendment, and the item will go anyway in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission and it'll come back to us for final approval or disapproval.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. When this minor amendment was heard by the commission, they also recommended approval on the rezoning case.
Yeah, well, again, we will be discussing the details of that application probably when it comes to us for rezoning.
That is
This
correct.
allows the process to move forward.
Mhm.
Do I hear, any comments? Let me open it to the public from the board. No questions? This opens the comment period for the public. Does the public have any comment? If not, I'll check it back to the board for their decision.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to case number 2019-MA-02.
Second.
There's been a motion and second to approve the minor amendment case number 2019-MA-02. Any discussion? If no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 2, a very short and succinct item. Development Services, Planning and Zoning Division, discussions concerning possible text amendments to the Yuma County zoning ordinance to consider the following. Adding section 624, which is suburban homestead to zoning, adding a zoning district, which will be suburban homestead. Deleting the term guest room from section 202-00 definitions and adding suburban homestead to under list of residential districts. Adding suburban homestead and zoning district to section 50100 districts established plate 5-1 district classes. Adding suburban homestead to section 505 minimum area requirements. Adding suburban homestead to section 1106 accessory buildings and uses. And adding suburban homestead to section 110601 cargo containers. This is all because we want to make sure that people know that if they're going to be adding anything that looks like a guest house or adding any kind of additional living facilities and increasing the density in some of these areas, we will not consider a guest house. This is kind of an effort to avoid having conflicts, land use conflicts with the Marine Corps Air Station and all the military installations that we have in Yuma County. Now, we can go into detail on each one of them, or we can simply take them up as what it is, our effort to limit that.
Well, I want to go through.
Oh, thank you very much.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. I don't have a formal presentation. This is more of a discussion item. Hopefully and eventually we'll bring this item back as an actual commission initiative for board action.
I see.
As you mentioned, there's been some concern expressed by the board over the last year or so about the increase in density in areas that are in the noise zone. People were coming in requesting rezoning to 2-acre lots, and the Marine Corps Air Station also expressed some concerns about the possibility of, if these properties were rezoned, eventually people come in and apply for a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit, therefore increasing the density in those areas. So that's why we're here today. We took this to the commission back in December. The commission recommended that we bring this to you also as a discussion item. Some of the changes that you have in front of you, well, all of the changes that you have in the memo that was prepared to you shows the proposed changes. The first one is removing the definition of a guest room from the definitions of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. Then we go into anywhere that the ordinance mentions or calls out the different zoning districts. We added suburban homestead in the first item there. You'll see that we included right there in between suburban site build and low density residential. Then we go down and we actually came up with 6 different types of suburban homestead, from 2-acre minimum up to 20-acre minimum parcels. Then we went ahead and modified the minimum area requirements. We included suburban homestead there, where we talk about the gross and net acreage calculations. Then we actually created the entire section 624.00 suburban homestead. So essentially, the suburban homestead is the same as the suburban ranch and the suburban site build zoning districts, with the exception that this one here will not have a provision that allows accessory dwelling units. So when someone applies for rezoning and to suburban homestead, they will not be able to make application for a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit, because it will not be listed as a permitted as a use as a special use in the zoning ordinance.
So, okay, all right, hold on a minute. That's, Supervisor McLeod's been wanting to ask a question for a while. I've been holding him back a little bit. I know. I'll go next to you, Lynn. Question.
How does this address existing 2-acre or 5-acre lots where they want to build an accessory dwelling unit? How does this fix that?
This will be for new zoning petitions. When someone makes a petition to rezone for 2-acre lots in the 65 decibel noise zone, staff will recommend that they make application for the suburban homestead, because I mean that's the direction that has been given by the board as far as why we're creating this zoning district. The customer, of course, they'll be able to make application for any other type of zoning. We will be supportive, staff will be supportive of the SH and the high noise zone. Anything that exists right now as SR or SS, staff is not planning on going back and changing that to SH.
So that would take a commission initiative. No,
I'm sorry?
That would take a commission initiative.
That would take a commission initiative. That's
Maggie, come up to the front. I know you're gonna want to participate in
I
this.
still don't know how it fixes the current problem, or it's already rezoned.
What this does, it addresses your concern as far as new development.
Yeah, going forward, I understand
Correct.
that. Okay.
And just to give you an idea, staff ran some numbers. I did some analysis, and what we have right now out there in available to be rezoned, and most of this is up in the Mesa that's currently designated rural density residential that supports 2-acre lots. Right now, we calculated about 77 parcels that are currently in the 65 decibel noise zone that could potentially request rezoning to 2-acre lots. The total acreage for these parcels come out to around 1,100 acres. Which means that we're looking at maybe 572 new parcels of 2 acres, and that could be rezoned. And if each one of these parcels were to, or property owners were to petition for special use permits, we could be seeing around 1,100 new dwelling units going up this kind of density in the 65 decibel noise zone. So what this new zoning district would do, if approved by the board, it would limit the increase in density. So for those parcels that I mentioned, If they come into rezone, potentially we could see around 517 new parcels versus 1,100 new dwellings. So that's the difference of density the impact of this new zoning district.
So the answer to the question is it doesn't fix existing, it only gives the board an avenue for moving forward
Correct.
into the future, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Question, Lynn?
But future people can still apply for suburban ranch, correct?
That is correct. People still have the option of making application for any kind of zoning that they desire.
So, and under suburban ranch, they can still have an accessory dwelling.
That is correct.
Okay,
So the question would be, why would the board approve it?
Yeah, so those parcels that you're talking about that could be developed could ask for suburban ranch and could ask for auxiliary dwellings.
That is correct. We would recommend that they make application for SH, and I mean ultimately they'll come to you, to the board, and the board will make that decision whether to approve or deny and recommend that they make application for an SH.
Okay.
That would, if I may.
Sure. Go ahead.
At that point, if they come in and they don't want to follow your advice and they go suburban ranch, is staff going to recommend denial? Or do you have the ability to recommend denial based on the fact that they did not go with this new zoning district, suburban homestead?
Chairman Reyes, Supervisor McLeod, since the direction of the board has been to come up with this new zoning district, and we'll have to do more research and more analysis, but I probably see that us making a non-favorable recommendation if they go against your desires and our desires of limiting density in the noise zone, in the high noise zones.
Okay, so you'd have that ability.
Correct.
Even though technically it would fit and they can apply for it, you would still recommend denial based on the fact they didn't go to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I'd like to.
Maggie.
Yes, so if somebody decides, if an applicant decides to apply for suburban ranch or suburban site built 2-acre minimum within the noise zones, I think staff would still recommend approval. However, once it comes to the board could choose to deny or approve the application.
Yeah, that was the reason
And
I was asking.
the reason that staff would recommend approval is that SR or SSB, as long as they maintain the density of 1 dwelling unit per 2 acres, even though the districts allow an accessory dwelling unit, it would still be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. There is no basis for recommending denial for something that is not suburban homestead.
That's exactly why I asked. Yeah.
However, the board, because of MCA, the recommendations that MCAS is coming forward with, could inform the applicant that the application
likelihood
would
of the board approving such a thing is
will
very
be denied, and they can come forward with an application
with the current board, yeah.
for suburban
That's why
homestead.
we're putting it forward.
And that's my
Can we-
concern is because this board is not going to approve it, right? But there are elections and there is turnover. And so that's my concern, and that's why I asked. I didn't know that. I agree with you. I don't think the staff would have the ability to recommend denial because it fits.
Staff's recommendations are based on sound planning principles.
Yeah,
They
and
are not based on a recommendation by the Marine Corps Air Station
Of
or
course.
input that staff receives from the general public.
would you, if I may
Sure.
continue?
Yeah.
Would we have the ability to go
deeper
back
into
and
it.
amend the general plan to say that within this area, this is the only kind of residential application that you
That
can
was
make?
my question. Good
Mr. Chairman,
question.
the
It's a
general
little
plan calls for densities within the unincorporated area of the county. It does not indicate zoning districts that are allowed. Some of the land use designations do call for specific zoning districts, and that may be somewhere where the plan could be amended, where the rural density residential land use designation doesn't have an allowance for anything other than suburban homestead.
Could you look at that and see if we can go back and address the general plan? And
Mr. Chairman,
put
that would
overlay
be,
in the 65
that would be a
dB?
major amendment to the comprehensive plan. It would require
A
staff
process,
to,
long
yes.
process.
It
Only,
would-
it's only done a certain time of the year. Yeah, it's a lengthy process.
Can we do
Yes.
that this year?
No, Mr.
No.
Chairman,
It
well,
fast.
based on the fact that we're starting 2020, yes, the application deadline for major amendments to the comprehensive plan is June 15th.
Yeah.
And then they're taken through the process. It will ultimately come to the Board of Supervisors December of this year.
Maybe your
Chairman,
party
I think
should.
we should do this.
I agree.
I think so. I think that what we're trying to do is not only look at future, but look at which way can we, set the tone or set the rules now so that people know ahead of time, that's not going to be an allowed use. And I think that the way to do it is through the major amendment. This process is good for the future, but it's still a very selective process. People have to choose, and we don't want to get there. But I want to make sure legal listens to what we're saying, because there is a provision about people being able to sue the county if they lose certain uses
yeah.
from the property.
They'll be looking at it.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we don't, that in some ways it isn't looked as us diminishing the value of a person's property, that we're just simply going through a general plan update just to make sure we give directions. I don't know how to word that, but we're going to have to go through this process, and at some particular point in time, we want to see if legally we can actually change somebody's zoning designation or restrict the use of the properties without having that come up.
In
We're
the
really
future.
very, very careful not to trample on
of course.
people's rights to use the property as
Of
they
course.
see fit.
Yeah.
So we may be
Mr. Chair.
diminishing what they can do with their property when we make that change.
Mr. Chair, only in the 65 and 70 decimal.
Yes,
Yes, of
yeah,
course.
that would be it. All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, keep in mind that the densities that are currently established in the comprehensive plan in the area of the 65 decibel noise zone, which is on the mesa, they were previously in the joint land use plan. Those same densities that were in the joint land use plan carried over to the comprehensive plan. The joint land use plan was a joint effort by the city of Yuma, Yuma County, Marine Corps Air Station. Those densities were all agreed upon by everybody at the time of the adoption back in 1996.
And let's make it, and let's make this clear.
It will. If the comprehensive plan is amended,
It will change.
those densities that were established
Will change.
back in 1996 with the adoption of the joint land use plan will change, if that's the direction of the board.
It will change.
And let me
Yes.
state what should be clear. The fact that you can apply for a permit does not mean that we will approve it. And I think that needs to be clarified. I mean, I don't think that the fact that you're in that zoning district gives you the right to do a guest house, to do, that. It gives you the ability to come in front of us. And what we were trying to do is to get to a point where people understand that coming in front of us would be a moot point if the Marine Corps Station continually votes against it or, presents their opposition to it. And we wanted to make sure people knew that before they started the process, so they don't spend the time and the money and the effort, because they can, to get to us for a decision. But at the end of the day, we can make a decision whether they do or do not, or whether they are or not able to build a second dwelling in there. We can at this particular time. We just wanted to make sure that people in the future know that there are some restrictions that we would not see, that we would see enforced, that are that effect. Sure.
Maggie, you lost me there. How does this reduce I thought under this they could still do 2 acres. How does it reduce their ability to break the properties down? I didn't understand that.
Mr. Chairman, the majority of the properties within the 65 decibel noise zone on the mesa are designated as rural density residential. The maximum density in the rural density residential land use designation is 2-acre minimum. However, that means that an applicant or an owner could apply for SR2 or SSB2 within the 65 decibel noise zone. Under those 2 zoning districts, a property owner can apply for an accessory dwelling unit. Therefore, they can have 2 dwelling units on 2 acres if approved by the board.
But this wouldn't diminish their ability to split down into 2 acres.
No.
No.
It's 2 acres minimum.
No, the new zoning district, the only difference between the new zoning district and the zoning districts that are in place is that the suburban
Auxiliary
homestead zoning district does not have a provision for an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
One other difference is suburban ranch and suburban site built allow 1 acre parcels. The suburban homestead zoning district will not allow 1 acre parcels.
Good.
Mr. Chair.
Sure, Lynn.
I would like to see us, see if it's possible for us to change the comprehensive plan so that in the 65-70 decimal, they can't have auxiliary dwellings. Is that what, that's
There can
what
only
Russell
be,
is?
the density can only be 1 residence per 2 acres.
That's
Minimum.
correct.
That's it,
Yeah.
right?
That's what the current designation allows. However, there are zoning districts that allow an accessory dwelling unit.
That's
So if
already
a zoning
suburban
district
ranch.
allows,
An accessory dwelling,
an
they can
accessory
apply.
dwelling unit, you can't prohibit it on the basis that you're only allowed to have 1 dwelling, the maximum density in a noise zone is 1 dwelling unit per 2 acres.
Okay.
You would have to change all of the zoning districts, which may amount to a taking, which subjects the county to possible Prop 207 claims.
All right, so the decision in front of us today is whether we want you guys to proceed with this new designation, or whether we'd like to go through the major amendment process to make that change effective this now, as opposed to a decision that a future board may make. John, do you have something to say?
I was just going to remind the board, this is just a discussion item. There's no legal action to be taken. They're just
No,
taking.
we're giving direction,
I just
right?
don't want to
Just
pull
direction.
another motion.
I don't want a motion. No, okay, so are we clear?
Well, we're going to check with legal and see what the ramifications may be. Is that correct?
Well, Mr. Chairman, for the discussion item today,
No?
Staff is asking whether the board wants to send this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to initiate an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Yes.
The issue about
Fine.
amending the
Fine.
comprehensive plan to limit the densities within the 65 decibel noise zone is a whole issue altogether that can be brought to the board at a later time.
All right, I think what we're doing here is we're trying to figure out a way to sort of take notice. We're going to be restricting this type of activity in this particular area. That's just direction. The second phase of this, bring it to the board so us, we can make a decision whether a major amendment is something we'd like to do. We have until June, but I think that, we'd like to bring that forth to us maybe in February or March, so we can get ready. If we wanted to make that change, that particular change effective, it may be redundant, but it probably helps us deal with what the problem is now. I suppose this will deal with the problem in the future, but what we're looking at is dealing with the problem now. And we want to put it on policy so that it is not just a board generated decision every time it comes to us. Is that clear enough?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we can bring the item about the major amendment at a future.
Another time.
Okay.
I think you ought to continue.
Yeah.
Right? You good?
Yes.
No vote, no decision. Just thank you very much, and you've got direction.
Mr. Chairman, would you like
John?
the item on your agenda today to be sent back to the Planning Commission to initiate a
Yes.
commission?
Yes.
That's what we just said.
Okay.
We just don't vote on it.
And
Just
Mr.
keep
Chairman,
it.
just a reminder that all these items, when they come through, are continually reviewed legally
Yeah.
by my office. So
Thank you.
Exactly.
we'll make
That
sure
was
if there's
the
any risk
expectation.
associated, we'll identify it when it comes.
Yeah,
course.
it's just a matter of us trying to avoid getting to a point where we start challenging the situation. So, prior review is always good.
The whole,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the whole issue is we don't want to encroach on the marine base, and we don't want to have,
We don't want to have people thinking they can come over and do this.
we don't want to increase the density to a point that we lose some of our,
Yeah. Okay.
our abilities at the marine base. Yeah.
All right, having given instructions to staff, I hope it's clear enough. We will move on to item number 3, which is Development Service Planning and Zoning Division, a special use permit case number 1906. Lourdes Amudio requests a special use permit for sections 611-.03B and J and K of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow recreational vehicles, a caretaker's residence, a tire repair shop, and on-screen storage of tires on a parcel 4,550 square feet in size zone, local commercial assessors parcel located in the 10376 East North Frontage Road, Yuma, Arizona. Mr. Rubio?
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Dan Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This is the case map that shows the property, parcel 403, crosshatch, zone C1. Surrounding the property to the north, immediately to the east and west, is the Fortuna Heights number 4 subdivision, zone manufactured home subdivision, 10,000 square feet minimum, and a mixture of manufactured homes and site builds. To the east, we have the Las Quintas Oasis RV Park, zone RVP. To the west, Los Amigos subdivision, mostly RVs, developed with RVs. And immediately to the west or further west, we have property zone C2, which is a location of vacant land and also the clubhouse for the Los Amigos subdivision. This is a site plan that was originally provided by the applicant. And here I'm going to show the effects that the minimum development standards have on the development of the property as it sits. The ordinance would require that this property maintain a 20-foot buffer on the north side to protect the residential area. They also have to maintain a 15.4 buffer on the east side, a 10-foot buffer on the south side along the frontage road, a 10-foot buffer on the west side along Pearl Avenue. Within these buffer areas, the applicant is not able to store anything. They're not able to use it for parking, maybe just a walkway and the installation of underground utilities. This is also interesting to note that the county is currently in the process of acquiring what you see here with 38.5 feet along the frontage road and a 25-foot chamfer for future right-of-way. So that's going to limit the development of the property even more. This is a site plan that was provided by the applicant yesterday or day before yesterday, I believe. It shows option 1. If the board were to approve this case, this is what the applicant intends to do. The applicant intends to make application for variance to request the reduction of buffering requirements along the north, along all the sides of the property to be able to develop the property. So this is option 1. Option 2, if the variances are denied, this is how the customer will develop the property or intends to develop with all the minimum development standards in place, including the right-of-way acquisition. They're intending to leave the container as shown, build a new 24 by 24 shade structure where they're going to do the tire repairs, and then location of the caretaker's RV and parking. This type of shade or where they're going to repair the tires would trigger around three or four parking spaces. I noticed that they're not showing the 25-foot chamfer here, so that's going to limit their parking a little bit more. It seemed like it would work. I mean, if they have to adhere to minimum development standards, this would be subject to further review from staff for issuance of permits. This is an aerial imagery of the property that shows surrounding uses. And the property here is shown vacant, but it's currently developed right now. This is a picture of the property looking north, looking northeast. You'll see the existing caretakers and the tire repair area. This is a view looking north along Pearl Avenue. This is a view looking west from the subject property. Staff received several comments from the general public and MCAS and City of Yuma. We received calls from 12 residents expressing support of this proposal. I believe most of these people calling were customers of the tire shop. We also received a letter from a resident of Los Amigos subdivision expressing opposition. And we received a letter from Mr. Ross Wade expressing support. Staff also received a petition signed by 36 people that live in the subdivision. And I'll show here, this is the subdivision right here, the subject property in blue. What you see here in yellow is those that signed the petition. The public record shows as being the property owners in support of this proposal. And in green, these are, according to the public record, they were not shown as property owners, so I'm assuming they were the tenants. So these are the tenants that signed the petition. This is the letter that we received in opposition from the property owner that lives in Los Amigos subdivision. So staff and the commission are recommending denial of this proposal. If the board were to approve it, we recommend the following conditions. Number one, that any changes of the site plan, and I'm sure there will be changes, that it gets approved by the planning director pursuant to the Yuma County zoning ordinance, that the hours of operation be limited from Monday through Saturday from 8 to 6 p.m., that the outdoor storage of tires shall not exceed maximum 6 feet in height, that all required permits shall be finalized within 6 months of approval by the board. All structures and improvements shall be in compliance with the ADA regulations. Vehicular access to the suburb property shall be restricted to Pearl Avenue in accordance with Yuma County Public Works standards. And it's important to note that this number 6 is a result of a rezoning case that the board approved back in the late 90s that had a condition that the access was going to be limited only to Pearl Avenue. Number 1 of the following performance conditions, that they signed the 1211-4 waiver, that within 60 days of approval, the owner construct a masonry wall 6 feet in height along the north and east property lines. And this is for fire protection to protect the residential area. Number 3, within 60 days of approval, the owner shall provide the following, and it's A through D. This talks about the storage of tires to ensure that they're protected and safely, and that they have proper gate latching and gates in place. Again, it talks about compliance with for safety and fire and all that. Number 4, within 60 days of approval, the owner shall register as a used tire site with ADQ. It's storing 100 tires or more and comply with ARS requirements. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'm ready to entertain any questions.
All right. Do you have any questions before I open up the public hearing, board?
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. On that area, it's just a brick wall on the north and east sides. I'm going to tell you, I get a lot of complaints about the tire shop. Mainly, it's just, I don't know any way to put eyesore. People driving down the road, just kind of seeing everything. And it's hard to control it because it is a small area and you're having to move stuff around, tires stacked around. I know there's no wall on the south side. Can we come up with something like, I noticed there's some white slatting around the tire storage area to hide it? Maybe do something like that along the north or the south side facing the frontage road. Just those white slats in the fence. Because like I said, that's the biggest complaint I hear from people.
And let me remind you that a special use permit allows us to place restrictions or to ask certain things be done for it to be effective. So if what you're saying is, we want to do something about how it looks, and a wall. I mean, we're asking for a wall in some places. Yeah. So asking for a side obstructing fence is not it's not outside the view of the realm of things we can ask for. We can ask for lighting, special lighting. We can ask for hours of operation. We can ask for almost anything.
Well, like I said, that, and from what I understand too, on your tire storage, you've got an off-site tire storage place as well.
You want us to?
Well, one of y'all want to come forward?
Oh yeah, but okay. So hold on, Rubio.
Chairman Reyes, yeah, I do have a comment.
Before I bring him in.
To address Supervisor Simmons' concern about the unscreened storage of tires. If you look at the petition or the request is they're asking for unscreened storage of tires. So if you want to see that the tires that are stored on the property that they be screened, then one of the things you could do is not allow the unscreened storage of tires.
Well, I
So that
noticed on variance 1, on option 1, it's got the chain link fence with the white slats around it on the west and south sides of their tire storage. It shows over here, their tire storage is up here, and it shows the white slats. I understand the white slats on the west side. If they put them along the frontage road fence, then I don't see a requirement for having them on the south side of the storage area. You understand what I'm saying on that?
Yeah, put them on the outside instead of the inside.
Yeah.
If you, Chairman Reyes and Supervisor Simmons, if you do not allow the unscreened storage of tires, they would be required to screen the tires. If they're not screening the storage of the tires,
they won't be able to store.
They won't be able to keep the tires unless they're screened.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm going to open the public hearing so that we can, so that they can participate. The applicant can participate if necessary to answer some kind of question or something. So is there anyone here that represents the applicant or the applicant himself? Okay, fine. All right, you hear the support, but pásenle para acá, para que estén ahí. Yeah, and you're going to talk on their behalf. You're going to talk on their behalf. Translate as best you can.
You need just one person up here at a time?
No. You three can
My
be
name
there.
is Rich Czar, and I live at 14444 Pamela de Fortuna, and I'm here to help support and communicate
applicant's
what the
desires.
intent is.
¿Usted, señora?
If they speak better Spanish than English, you can do it in
Yeah,
Spanish.
their English is very good, so is Albert's.
Okay, but
okay,
either
go
way.
ahead.
So.
Señora, su nombre, your name.
Well, my name is Lourdes Zamudio, and this is my husband.
Juan Macau.
Okay.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay.
And thank you for the opportunity of having us here.
Okay, the question was that the concern of Supervisor Simmons, and he expressed it, was that, that there be a side obstructing fence where storage is stored, where tires are stored. And basically, his concern was how it would look.
If you look at the tires that are on the outside now of that slatted fence, their actual storage is on the inside, so it's slatted already. That is, if we pull the map back up, that area, all these tires are going away. In fact, they're almost gone now. They have a rented storage at Mina de Fortuna, storage on 14 and the North Frontage Road to store excess tires. So we're going to minimize the amount of tires storage on site. So all of that storage is going in that area, which is already out of sight by those slats, and would not get stored any higher than 6 feet. And I think that will comply as we apply for or get the application to ADEQ, which we've already downloaded from their website to store 100 or more tires. So they've been busy in the last few weeks removing all these tires. So if they could, since we've got to put the masonry wall on the north side and the east side, if we needed to slat the existing chain link fence, that would be best case for us rather than masonry wall all the way around, since it does need to have the fire break as a masonry wall would provide.
Okay. All right. So does that satisfy your question, Supervisor? All right. Okay. What does that sign say? California Car Wash.
See,
Oh,
we
okay.
have a,
All right.
a
Well, I
little
just-
van with like a mobile wash service.
Oh, a mobile
and
wash
we like
service. Okay,
lo
got
estamos como promocionando, like
You're promoting
that
it.
we have.
All right. Okay.
That you
I
also
just
do.
anything that has
The
California.
plan
on it
is to
drives my-
change that to Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona Car Wash.
Yeah, you have to put Arizona Car Wash on. Anyway, okay. Any other questions from the applicant? Sure, sure.
I have a question. So what we're requesting is white slatted and white slatted on the frontage road side and on the Pearl Avenue side, correct?
Yes,
And
and
then-
masonry in the
And
north
masonry
and
on the,
East and north.
the north
and
and
north.
east side.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that.
You understand? ¿Entienden? Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, any other questions? It's a pretty, sure.
With the property being acquired for the right-of-way and also that angle, I mean, I just have to ask you, are you still going to be able to conduct business? It looks awfully difficult once you do that.
Mhm. Can you go back to the picture where you're gonna take all that property in the front? Yeah.
But don't say take, I mean, we're gonna buy that property.
I mean, buy the property in the front, yeah.
I think they have an option too, with county
Right
requirements.
there.
Right there.
That's-
So, no, but I mean, there's another one,
If you don't
another
get the-
handout.
If you don't get the variance, which is not
Right there.
any kind of a guarantee.
Chairman Reyes, McLeod, that's one of the reasons why we're asking for the variance is because of the fact that the county is taking just short of 30% of their
Yeah.
square footage.
Mhm.
They can work with the option that the county is requiring at this juncture. But that's why we're asking for the variance, to have that elbow room, if you will, and to provide for more space, working space. So that's why we provided the variance,
Okay.
and we did the
So
drawing for
they're
the
designed
option,
already
the
includes
county's option, or the
taking out the
county's
county.
requirement
Yeah.
at this time.
Because a lot of
I think it
times
was
those
taken out.
variances aren't easy, but I think
No.
your point that the county is causing the problem,
Yeah,
that is
Helps.
probably your leg up. for a
Right,
variance.
that's why we're asking for it.
yeah. Because we're widening the
Yes.
frontage road. Mhm.
Yeah.
And also the number of tires is gonna be reduced to a minimal of what they need to
Mhm.
operate their business on a daily basis, given they've already rented the storage space to take excess tires to.
I hate to put it in this terms, but anything they do to improve the way it looks and the way it operates, it's a gain.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity for us to sort of intervene a little bit and make the situation better, because the way it is right now, obviously, is creating a problem.
Option one
Yeah.
and option two.
All right, any more questions from the applicant? If not, I'll take it back to the board and for their decision.
Make a motion that we approve a special use permit for case number 19-06, I believe, with the changes of, one, the white slatted fence around the perimeter, and go with option one, with
Yes.
just the 10-foot buffer instead of the 20, due to the fact that the county, like I
We
said,
can't
is
do that.
taking.
I don't think we can do that.
Can we?
It's
It's
what
a
they
special use
present.
permit, maybe we can.
Yes.
Yeah,
special
because it
use
shows
permit.
it as one of the options.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a special use
we
permit.
can.
That requires a
Chairman-
variance,
Chairman
and I don't
Reyes?
know that we can give them a variance.
I don't know.
Option one is actually, the Board of Adjustment is the one who would have to
That's,
reduce or waive any requirements of the zoning ordinance.
even though it's a special use permit.
Correct.
Yes, that's the point, Darren.
Okay,
And
so
but we can
We can't
recommend
approve
that.
we can
the
recommend that
The
then.
Board of Adjustments.
Okay.
Can we do that?
I'm sorry?
Sure.
Can we
they can.
recommend that the Board of Adjustments
Here comes
do a
Maggie.
No,
10-foot instead of a 20?
No, see, the need for the variance will come into play when they wish to come in and get permits and they see that they can't adhere to the minimum development standards. So there's already a condition here that it's subject to the site plan,
But the
and
other
any
one,
changes
yes.
to the site plan will be
But option
approved by the
two
plan
has
director.
15 and
So
a
that
quarter.
takes care of that.
Okay,
That would
All
take
right.
care of, the site plan and how the property is supposed to be developed.
okay.
Of course, there will be changes again because they're not sure how it's gonna work out yet, but ultimately, the plan director will approve that site plan.
Okay.
Okay.
What staff does recommend, and again, if you leave, they're asking for a special use permit from 61103 B, J, and K. B is for B is for the caretakers. J is for the tire shop.
Mhm.
And K is for the unscreened storage of tires. If you leave K, they can still have unscreened
tires on the property. But if you remove K, they'll be required to screen those tires, whether they use the slats or they use the storage containers or whatever. The tires will have to be in a
All right.
screened area.
So to make it clear, if we
So we eliminate K.
we can
and they have to
eliminate
have
K
it.
and have them, if they store tires in the property, site screen them. Or store them someplace else, which is what they're thinking of doing right now.
The ordinance will require that they screen those tires.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Now, the perimeter fence would cover that part
Yeah.
of the ordinance though, because it's
It's a block wall on one side and it's.
We are requiring that they provide, as part of the special use permit, the 6 foot tall masonry wall along the north and the east side property lines. Again, to protect the residential neighborhood.
Don't want to make it too confusing. We don't have to, unless we're willing to approve the special use permit allowing the storage of tires without a cover, we should take K out of there and allow them to go through the process, through the normal process, which is, they're gonna have to have a site plan that deals with stored tires if they want to store them there, that has it covered. So what, if you allow your motion, just don't include
K.
K.
Okay.
All right?
Chairman Reyes, if I may.
Sure.
The plan is, as you can see there, we have tire storage in that slatted area. That's where
Yeah,
the
but that-
removal
that
of
means-
all tires on the outside, as you saw in the photograph.
Yeah, and that meets the requirement. That's what I'm saying, is you don't need K because you will meet that requirement. You will site obstruct.
That's correct.
If your site plan's approved, which is still, a stretch because of the, what do you call it, the offsets, the buffer zones. But you're gonna have to deal with that at the next level, right? At this particular level, we're just dealing with the special use permit under certain conditions. That doesn't mean, as it was pointed clearly, that we are recommending approval by the Board of Adjustments or anything else, because they go through their own process of decision, okay? Senora?
Mr. Reyes,
Yes.
I want to just add something. We have seen like in around Yuma, South Arizona, tire shops that are more little than what we have, and they do their business good. We don't need like a lot of space because we don't have like a lot of cars, like big old tires. No, we just have few people that go in, get their tire repair, and they're out. We don't do like big things that would require like a lot of people in there, like a lot of cars going in and out. We don't have that much, customers, or we don't do big business, like tire repair and not a much thing going on there.
Okay.
I just
That's
want
fine.
But you meet a need, yeah.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
So your business meets a need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so everything seems to be sort of like in the clear, right? The motion would be to approve the special use permit with the changes requested by Supervisor Simmons, excluding K.
Yep.
Okay, is that clear to everybody? Was there a second?
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second to do that. Supervisor McLeod.
I have a comment.
Un comentario.
You still need to close the public hearing.
Restate the motion? The motion was,
So now
no, we didn't get to it. Okay, well, okay. We're gonna redo the motion, Supervisor Simmons.
Okay, approve the rezoning case number.
We'll get to it.
Special use.
The special use permit.
Case for number 7-19, excluding K. Let's keep looking at the wrong one. Section K.
All right, and do you remember what the request was about the site obstructing slots and so forth? That would be a requirement if they want to store tires in there. But do you want that requirement to be there no matter what?
Yes.
Okay, that's the change, okay?
Yeah.
So now we're in the clear.
Is there a change to the operational or performance?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter.
No, this is a change to the requirement for site obstructing fence. I mean, it was only required if they were gonna store tires, and you would require for that area. This will require that you do the whole side, okay? The whole size. So that you, from the outside, you won't be able to see much, okay?
Chairman Reyes?
Yes? That's part of the motion, yes.
He needs to allow
Yep.
the people.
All I have is approved special
if they
use
wish.
case permit number 19-06, excluding section K.
And
Close it.
With
And
the-
include,
And to
adding,
include slatting on the fence on the south side
uh-huh,
South end.
and west.
and west.
and west,
On south and west side.
yes.
Okay.
Now, Juan, hold on a
And
minute.
now
I
I
know you got a
second it.
question, but I mean, he's been trying to say something for the last 2 minutes.
Before you can make the motion, you need to close the public hearing.
I have. I said
you
I
did?
opened the public hearing, yes,
Okay.
to allow
Just
the,
allow the public.
the applicant to come forward.
Close it, he just
Did you
didn't-
close
And
it
allow
yet?
the public to, maybe there's some.
Yeah, well, okay, fine. On the discussion item, I'll open it up to the public again. Because I didn't close it. I should have. All right, so anybody in the public, and remember, if you're here in support, all you have to do is raise your hand. If you're in opposition, you want to come, step up and come up if you want to say something. Are you?
I'm Terrell Freeman.
Oh, hold on. If you're going to say something, you gotta come up, you gotta come up. Yeah, he's in support, I know that, but he stood up, so, okay. And I know there's somebody maybe in opposition, because I think I saw that. Go ahead. And remember, there's a motion on the floor, right?
There can't be because the public hearing is still open.
Well, it can be any time. I don't think this, well, anyway, let's not get into the details, okay? There's a half of a motion, there hasn't got a second yet, so.
I'm Terrell Fremantle, and I live down the road from Albert's Tire Shop, and I bought tires from him, and I'm here in support of this shop, so,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? No, not in support. The motion is to approve it, so you may not need to add anything to that. Is anybody in?
My name is David Hernandez.
Yes.
I live at 13466 East 44th Drive, Foothills area. I've done business with this couple for a number of years, and I'm totally in favor of them doing business there on the North Frontage Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry that I stopped you from coming, sir. If you want to come over and say something in support, come over, because I'm just waiting for that gentleman that raised his hand before I'm sure he may want to have the last word.
No, I'm in support for Albert.
Oh, okay. Well, come over here and say something, because you've been wanting to come up here, since you started, so come over and say something.
I'm Sid Kuipers from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm a winter visitor. Of course, we spend 6 months here and 6 months back home. I've known Albert and Lulu for a number of years. Since '07, we've been coming here. And they're a great couple. He's a hardworking man. I can't say he's washed and waxed my motorhome in the spring when we get ready to go home. And when we come back, he does the same thing. So.
Your name, because I think we didn't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sid Kuipers. Kuipers.
Thank you. And thank you, Sid. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I had a couple friends that had dealings with Albert, and they are very satisfied with what he has done on the tires. Washing is great. I've had a couple people that went to Big O, and they had to wait in line for a half hour or so to get work done, and they decided to come over to Albert. 10, 15 minutes later, the work was done, they were back on the road.
Thank you, Sid. I think we had enough.
Okay.
You may
all right.
mention somebody else like Sam's Club or something. No. It's getting dangerous now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
But I can keep going.
No, you don't need to.
The man is good.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you need to stand up because you've tried to come up it several times.
You got 15 seconds. No, I'm just
No,
kidding. Just
He
kidding.
has as much, yeah.
Take your time.
Administration, but my name is John Foster. We've been dealing, and I live in the foothills there, and I've been dealing with Albert for about eight years. And when you're small and you're trying to start out, every time you started somewhere, you get a couple of years out of it, and you move on. And when you're trying to start a business, you can't do that. And now he's got a chance to try on his own corner, and I'm here to support the fact that somebody starting out, you need to get a start. And so hopefully he gets the start, and we'll support him the best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, I'm returning it back to the board. I'm closing the public hearing, getting it back to the board. There's been a motion or
I'll second it.
an effort to a motion from Supervisor Simmons. And does everybody remember what the motion said? It was for approval, with the exception of K and the addition of comments regarding the side obstructing fence on the west and the south side. Okay, that was it, right? The rest of the conditions will remain the same, correct? There's been a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Pancrasi. Any more discussion?
Yes.
I knew
Very
you were
patient.
going to mess this up.
I can tell you, when I walked in the door today, there is no way I'm voting for this. I didn't think it belonged there, and the fact that the space is going to be so tight for you just doesn't really seem to me to fit well, especially with the character of the area. With that said, the lack of support that you have for your business from the neighbors, which I would have thought for sure they would be mightily opposed, they're not. And the fact that your supervisor that is responsible for that area is in favor of it has changed my mind. I wanted you to know that all of the support that people showed for you paid off, at least for my vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Very good.
All right, anybody else? If not, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Go ahead and
Congratulations.
don't reproduce,
Yeah.
just go ahead. All right, we have another case, a reversion hearing in accordance with section 404.01. I'm letting most of them go out, but of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, the board will conduct hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classifications in the following cases. Right, I read that for the record, so, once everybody settles, this is a Development Service and Planning Zoning Division rezoning case number 07-19 in accordance with the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former rural area, 10-acre minimum, zoning classification, assessors parcel number 754-35-013 located at 17295 South Avenue B&a half, Yuma, Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, presenting rezoning case 07-19. Mr. Chairman, this is the third time this case is presented in front of the board for reversion.
What's happened the first two times?
Yeah, this is the exists the current zoning and vicinity map showing subject parcel, Cross Hatch. It's located on the northeast corner of County 17.5 and Avenue B&a half. It's improved with a civil home at the moment. This is the site plan submitted by, for some reason, I sent the wrong document.
There you go.
This is the site plan submitted by the applicant at the time, back in 2007, proposing access easement on the north, 20 feet, and proposed to split the property into 4 parcels.
Okay, and what?
Currently, the schedule for development has not been met. At the time, the schedule for development was that the property has to be divided with a land division permit as per section 507, also by recorded deeds by the applicant in accordance with the site plan submitted in March 30, 2007. And all the lots should have access to means to irrigation and access to irrigation water, and obtain a letter from Unit B Irrigation stating that the irrigation water is satisfactory and the system is proper. Also, that the private road easement within the north 50 feet shall be improved with a 20-foot wide surface with standard B, and also provide for fire apparatus access. None of these has been complied with. Got stuck. See? And current status, the deadline to comply with the schedule for development was December 4, 2019.
Did you contact the?
Yes, we did. Also, the original agent at the time, Mr. Lee Williams, did not approach staff with any, if he wanted to continue, request an extension or request reversion. Mr. Williams tried, like in the past, probably 2 years ago, tried to come up with a new ideas how to develop the property and divide it. But since it's bound to the schedule for development approved at the time, we told him, you need to revert it and then rezone it and come up with a new development plan. So therefore, right now the board of supervisors has the following options: either grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or revert the zoning to its original RA10. Staff recommends reverting the zoning to its original rural area to a minimum zoning classification, Mr. Chairman.
All right, this one says hearing, right? But there's no public hearing required, correct?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Well, see, that's what gets me all the time, If you put in there
You
the
need to do it
hearing.
another 20 years.
Yeah, do another 20 years, I'll get to you guys, right?
One day we'll get it.
Yeah, next time put like a reversion something, like a meeting or a decision or something. Okay, so any questions? I mean, I'm really sorry that whomever that person is or whomever those persons are do not understand that rules have changed since then. So there'll probably be more difficult requirements to meet if he brings it forth, trying to do the same thing. But that's something that we cannot, control or have any way. If we had contacted I would have been much more, well, I wouldn't call it satisfied, but I would have been a lot less reluctant to take action in reverting this if they would ask for something. But if they haven't asked for anything, they haven't contacted him, it's difficult to argue that it shouldn't be reverted. So do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman, that we rezoning case number 07-19 revert back to its original RA10.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The motion and second to revert it back to revert this zoning case, 07-19 back to its original zoning designation. Any more discussion? If no more discussion, all those in favor of
Just
the
a question.
Sure.
Did he contact, or you tried to contact him and you
Yes,
couldn't?
we did register mail, Mr. Chairman.
Through mail?
Yes.
And so he
He did not
didn't return?
respond. He signed the card that is required. He received
Oh,
the
okay.
notification,
It was
and I
registered mail.
requested to contact us if he would like to request an extension or reversion.
okay.
Yeah, same thing. Same concern with me, and sometimes I think we may add something else in terms of trying to contact some of these people. Sometimes maybe, because sometimes mail, it's not necessarily picked up by the same individual. In San Luis, for example. Yeah,
In this particular case, it was signed by Mr.
by him?
Mr.
Yeah,
Lopez.
to sign it, yeah.
All right,
See
well,
if
we're
we
giving
can-
them every possible chance to respond. Okay, there's been a second, a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and we move on to the event calendar and current events. Supervisor Pancrasi, did you go anywhere?
Yeah,
Ah.
look at that. I'm back on. See my list?
Yeah,
my
I
list
see your
is
notes.
huge. Okay. I went to the fair relocation meetings. The Yuma Crossing Heritage Area, I had a meeting with the director, Lowell Perry, and Representative Tim Dunn to see if we could get some matching funds for some improvements. I went to the 2020 executive, in my office, I did the webinar for the effective engagement with the state lawmakers. I went to the Yuma County Grants Division's open house. I judged the science fair at Yuma High School, and if you want strawberries to last longer, you put them in hot water for 30 seconds, and it's the best way. Anyway, it was a very good science fair, and I really enjoyed judging it.
How hot the water?
Oh, hot the
Oh,
water- should
yeah,
the water be?
boiling hot, yes.
Boiling hot?
Boiling hot, just,
Okay.
just
Yeah, it
blanch
turns
them,
to
and then
jelly.
they last 18 days instead of 9. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Because
one
they're
of the
boiled.
science projects. It was really good. I attended the Yuma Crossing Heritage Area board meeting. I attended the opening session for the Arizona State Legislature and the Governor's State of the State. We all did the special work session for 197 Main. I attended the CSA legislative reception for the legislators at CSA and the CSA Medium County Caucus and the CSA board meeting. CSA is County Supervisors Association. I attended the Arizona Transportation meeting, the Arizona State Transportation meeting, and then I did an orientation for Body Walk. I am going to be the Bones. I get to wear a costume and do the third grades, and I'm part of the Bones. Yes, I'm part of the presentation for the Bones. As far as that for the Body Walk, and I attended the MLK Walk and the service and did a proclamation on behalf of the county for all of us. And I attended the luncheon for the governor's State of the State here in Yuma. And tomorrow I'm speaking at Project Central, which is a leadership training program. That's what I've done.
Good, I'm tired already.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
Yes, I
I gotta
am.
go hear you again.
Yes, you do.
All right, Supervisor McLeod.
Okay. I also attended Governor Ducey's State of the State speech and the luncheon. The chamber did a great job putting that on, and it was packed.
It was.
Also did went and greeted Governor Ducey at his visit to Amberley's place. He and his wife.
Thank you.
Went and
He was
toured that.
impressed.
And yes, they were very impressed with what has taken place in Yuma. And, so Yuma should be proud. And as I'm sure all of you know, the community support for Amberley's place is excellent. And so it's great the community can know that it's well recognized.
They've come a long way.
It's come a long way. And so it is a state of the art and it is a model for the nation. Attended the Yuma County Chamber of Commerce dinner. Met with Penny Pugh with Congressman Gosar's office regarding the fairgrounds relocation.
Thank you.
Attended the CSA board meeting and the CSA legislative reception the evening before. Also the Board of Supervisors special meeting on 197 Main. Attended the GYEDC board meeting. Attended the NEPA, which is the EPA's, well, their teleconference explaining how the new regulations for environmental protections is going to be run. And I saw plenty of false reporting that they're rolling back environmental protection regulations, and that's
Good.
not true. What they're doing is they are reforming the process so that instead of taking 10 years, they can get it done in 1 to 2 years. It causes huge delays, a lot of expense, a lot of attorney's fees, and of course, construction costs go up over that period. So that's the game, is to make sure that these agencies respond quickly.
All right.
Also an immigration reform teleconference with the White House. And the last note that I have is I did various and more stuff than Supervisor Pancrazzi.
Supervisor
I
Simmons,
wrote that in my notes.
hurry up before he starts off again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, also attended the 197 board meeting. We had the special meeting. Attended the Welton Mohawk Irrigation Drainage District's annual or monthly board meeting. Attended the Welton Town Council, had a special meeting in reference to some changes they're looking at making within the town. Attended and helped out with the 40th Street cleanup, and I'd like to thank everybody that came out for that. I can't count the number of dump trucks load of concrete and stuff that was hauled out of there, but I know we filled up 2 of the large rollback dumpsters with furniture and yard trimmings, and just it's better than it was, but it still needs attention.
Thank you.
So went out there and helped with that. Attended the El Prado Estates meeting in reference to their new sewer system to update them as far as what's going to go on with that with Rachel Stallworth. Water User Irrigation District dinner. I attended that. Also attended the governor's address and also met with Rural Metro Chief reference to some issues we're having out at Martinez Lake, trying to figure out on fire coverage.
Okay, thank you very much. Supervisor Porges.
I attended the GYDC meeting. I also was at the CSA reception and the meeting for Medium County and in the CSA meeting. Also did the walk with on the Martin Luther King Day, and I also attended the governor's State of the State. And I just want to say, you know, the gentleman that spoke earlier today about the high school, I think it's you know, he hit it right on the point, because a high school for the city of Somerton will drive economic development, huge. I mean, and if this is what, you know, we've been pushing for, I think it does need everybody's attention and support. I know, unfortunately, the state
Village board.
Facilities.
Facilities Board doesn't have any money, but I believe there is ways of there that the governor can help. And I believe the governor did say that he was gonna look into it and see how he could help Yuma Union High School District.
Good.
Yeah,
Well,
for the
good.
next, for the next meeting, a letter from the board supporting that project would be probably something that we could think of doing instead of just simply talking about it,
Yeah.
okay?
I'd like to do that, please.
Signed by all five of us.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I attended the Martin Luther King event. I didn't get to March, but I attended the event. And I also attended a Arizona Borders Coalition meeting in Tucson. And the 197 scenario of which Benito wrote extensively on. The facility, on the other side of the street here. And so I hope that's all you need to know from today. Do you have anything, Diana? Nada? Nothing? Well, then that's it. We've done what we're dealt with every item in the agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Mhm.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.